Good afternoon. It is Wednesday, June the 2nd, 2021, and it is 5:32. Calexico City Council, Calexico Redevelopment Assessor Agency, Calexico Financing Authority regular meeting agenda. A regular meeting.
Mayor Rola Fernandez.
Here.
Mayor Pretend Moreno.
Here.
Councilmember Ureña is absent. Councilmember Romo is absent. Councilmember Garcia.
Here.
We have a quorum, Mayor. Due to the declaration of emergency, this meeting is being held pursuant to authorization from Governor's executive orders. Some or all of the City Council members may participate in this meeting by teleconference as authorized by Executive Order N29-20 issued by the Governor of California March 17, 2020. Imperial County Public Health Director Janet Angulo has provided the city with orange moderate tier guidelines issued by the state for indoor gatherings. Effective this date, City Council meetings will be open for public attendance at 50% of capacity of council members. All persons entering City Hall will be required to wear a face mask and observe social distancing guidelines. Public participation will continue to be available via spectrum.org live, via the Calexico City Hall Facebook page, also via Zoom. And members of the public are encouraged to participate by making public comments, by submitting them via email to the city clerk by 2 p.m. today, or by going on Zoom and requesting to speak via Zoom chat. I have no public comments.
Public comments? Okay, I guess we will be adjourning to closed session, and it is 5:34. Good afternoon. It is Wednesday, June the 2nd, and it is 6:32. And Calexico City Council, Calexico Redevelopment Assessor Agency, Calexico Financing Authority. This meeting is being called to order.
Mayor Rola Fernandez.
Here.
Mayor Pretend Moreno.
Here.
Councilmember Ureña.
Here.
Councilmember Romo. Here. Councilmember Garcia.
Here.
We have a quorum, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. All right, ready? Begin.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mission statement. City Manager?
Together, we pledge to provide effective and efficient services in a courteous and respectful manner to improve the quality of life for all in our unique border community.
Innovation by Pastor Frank Salsueta. Welcome, Frank.
Good evening, council members, citizens of Calexico. Before I open in prayer, I want to read a passage or a couple of verses out of 1 Timothy concerning prayer. It says, first of all, then I urge that supplications, prayers, intercessions, and thanksgiving be made for all people. For kings and all who are in high positions, that we may lead a peaceful and quiet life, godly and dignified in every way. And I love verse 3. This is good, and it is pleasing in the sight of God, our Savior, who desires all people to be saved and to come to the knowledge of the truth. Amen? Amen. This is why we're here for prayer tonight. Let's pray. Father in heaven, God, it is so clear in your blessed word that it pleases you when people gather and acknowledge you in prayer. And God, I want to first pray for those that you have placed in authority I pray for the council members, God, that you would bless them. God, that you would give them wisdom from heaven, as your word declares. If there is anyone amongst us that would need wisdom, let him ask. And God, we also pray for all people. We pray for the citizens of the city of Calexico, Lord God, that you would bless them as well. God, we pray your blessing upon this evening, upon this meeting. And we ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Okay, closed session announcement. Thank you. Moving on to presentations. Presentation by Michael Pacheco, Water Department Manager, Imperial Irrigation District.
Madam,
Madam Mayor, point of order. Can I have us, we had a request to move item, one of the agendas, item number 14, I believe?
To 14 to 4.
Yes, Madam Mayor, prior to the approval of the agenda, there is a request that we can move information on item 14 after item number 4.
Okay. Okay, now, so do I have a motion to approve the agenda? Second?
Second.
Okay, now moving on.
Councilmember Garcia,
Aye.
Councilmember Romo,
Aye.
Councilmember Ureña,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Moreno,
Aye.
Mayor Arreola Fernandez.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Now moving on to presentations. Presentation by Michael Pacheco, Water Department Manager, Imperial Irrigation District, regarding the engagement of Beach Canal.
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, members of the public, Javier Gonzalez, IID Director, Division 4. We're very happy that the Water Department is here to give some presentations. Before we move on to that, I just want to inform the public that the Energy Department gave a similar presentation to the Imperial County Southern Border Alliance. I know some of you were there. We were very surprised that as you saw last year and during the campaign, even in the newspapers came out that Calexico was lacking in energy, that we couldn't grow, and it's totally the opposite. I mean, your city manager can give you an update, and we were surprised. Myself, Supervisor Jesus Escobar, everybody from the committee. And maybe I know you guys read in the newspaper last year that we couldn't grow. Cannabis couldn't grow because the presentation was different. This is why we bring you this presentation. We're very glad that the city, Mr. Figueroa, is working very close with the water department, with the energy department. We, like you know, we went through all the city, checking out the street lights. We're going to do it again in July. There will be less of them. We're hoping that soon most of the lights in Calexico are LED. And without further ado, this presentation will talk about the beach and canal safety, including the new signs for the deep duck. We're going to put friendly signs. The fence at the All-American Canal at Cloak Avenue, the fence. And I know last week we had the water come into Gutierrez Field again. There was tournament that day, and 6 teams. IID is going to work closely with the water department to put in cameras. So without further ado, Mr. Michael Pacheco, Water Manager for IID, and Mr. Antonio Ortega, Public and Community Relations Manager for IID. They'll be presenting. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Gonzalez. Good evening, Council. Javier had asked me to maybe present the beach canal relocation, the proposal that the Water Department's been working with. So I kind of wanted to, I just did a kind of a PowerPoint 3-4 slides to kind of show you, or give you some background on the beach canals. So Gabby, can you go to that? So just to give you some beach canal information, the existing capacity, well, let me go back. The beach canal, most of you are familiar with the location. It comes off the Cole Road. The heading comes off of the Bowker, the New Briar system, and it travels west, and it goes through the development, some of the housing development, some of the businesses, and then it goes underneath Highway 111 as a pipeline. So there's no more farming in that area. All the farming that is occurring is down really it starts with Cloak and Cole Road, the intersection of Cloak and Cole. So we were looking at trying to abandon that section of the beach canal. First of all, there's, like I said, there's no more farming turnouts in that section. Second, safety issue with all the housing development that's going to occur there for the children, not to, with this kind of temperature in the summer, there's always an invitation to go in canals, and that's what we want to avoid. So those were the reasons that we wanted to find a way to relocate the beach canal and get it away from the, the city there and the development and also the businesses that are. One of the concerns that I've always had is that if we ever, the pipeline that goes under 111, if it ever get plugged, how do we ever get it unplugged? Because we're going to disturb a lot of businesses, and that's something that we didn't want to do. So going back, the capacity is of 43 CFS. The number of acres that canal serves as far as farming is a little over 2,000. There's 23 deliveries, and then there's some homes that receive canal water just downstream of the railroad on Cole Road. Next slide. So just to kind of give you an idea, the green line is the existing beach canal alignment. Like I said before, it starts there at the Bowker, travels all the way to the intersection of Cloak and Cole Road. And there's no farming activity in that section. The proposed realignment is having placing a new heading off the All-American there at Cloak Road, and then going north on the east side of Cloak Road. IID has purchased 3 acres on the east side to install the pipeline there. So you can see it's kind of a shorter route than compared to where it is now. So it's really going to help. And the other thing that's going to help us is also, I think we can get some additional capacity for the farming community there. Next slide. So you can kind of see by this slide, just to kind of show you some of the businesses and stuff, which you guys are very aware. I don't have to tell you where everything's at. You guys are very familiar with that. Next slide, Gabby. And this is a closer look at where the alignment would go, the proposed alignment. Like I said, I think that what used to be that vacant lot used to be a no-feed lot called the Hardman feed lot. And so, I don't know, maybe in the future there'll be something developed, and that's the reason we went with a pipeline instead of an open channel, because we didn't want to face the same situation that we're having now with the beach canal being an open channel, in case there's ever some housing development in that area. And the last slide. So, like I said, we're going to install a new heading for the beach canal off the All-American. It's a half a mile long, 72-inch pipe, concrete pipe, that we're going to install on the east side of Cloak Road, and eliminate some of the interest there on in the businesses in there. So, it's a quick little update for you. I know Mr. Ortega is going to follow me with the funding opportunities to get this project going and get it done and get it away from the development there in the city of Calexico. So I'd be happy to answer any questions from the council. If not, then I can turn it over to, and yeah, before I walk off, I wanted to talk to also Mr. Gonzalez spoke about the bridge at Cloak Road and the All-American. We've seen some people walking there. We've seen some people sitting on the rail, which if they lost their balance, they would go into the All-American very easily. So we're going to look at fencing both sides of that bridge. I've talked to the county, and so, because it is a county bridge, and so they're working with us, so we should get that going pretty soon. So that more of a safety issue there.
Thank you. So in terms of completion from start to finish, what timeline do you
That's an
anticipate?
excellent question, Mr. Moreno. It really depends on if we get that federal funding, then we can get going quick. If not, then we're going to have to go ahead and probably budget in our budget cycle with IID and then go that route. So I really couldn't really answer your question as far as right now, but as soon as we get the funding, then it'll be top priority for us.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions?
I have a question. Madam, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Pacheco, for being here. And I have a question and proposal for you. We already have the cost of the project. Do you consider it to be within the capital budget for IID? Is the question. And the proposal is, could a letter from the city of Calexico signing, maybe for the administrator, help to support the funds, the federal funds, or whatever, of this project?
So if I understood your question, a letter from the city of Calexico would support the project. I think Mr. Ortega is going to talk about all the support that we've received for this project. So I think he can answer that question a little bit better than I can.
And the capital budget for IID is possible for the budget, the IID?
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
Okay, what is your consider is to be within the capital budget of IID this project or not?
So I think it kind of leads to Mr. Moreno's question. So if the federal funding is not there, then we will put that in our capital
It's only
budget.
for
Yeah.
okay, federal
Yeah.
cost. Okay, thank you.
We're going to try to get that approved, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Pacheco.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Antonio Ortega, IID Government Affairs. So great questions. I'll be happy to provide a little bit more detail. So we did receive a letter of support already from the city of Calexico. We have had discussions ongoing now for the past 2 months with the office of Senator Feinstein, Senator Padilla, also your local Assembly Member Garcia, through state funding. But we are focused our efforts right now on federal funding.
Yeah.
We had a follow-up conversation with Senator Feinstein's office, which then led to us receiving, and Director Gonzalez has been excellent in getting letters of support. Again, we got one from your city. Thank you very much. We have a letter from the Calexico Neighborhood House, from the Imperial County Farm Bureau, CoLab. I expect to receive one from the school district here in the city of Calexico. So all around, we're out there. We're trying to get enough support to demonstrate to our federal government and our Congress members that this project has community support behind it. It has support from your city, from local developers. So that is our first avenue. That's what we're pursuing. Second priority to that would be through state funding. And that's where Assemblymember Garcia, through his office, has also submitted this as a priority project under a request that he received from the governor's office that could possibly be funded in this year's budget. So we have 2 avenues that we're working in a parallel path. But then as Mike Pacheco already mentioned, the third alternative would be, if none of those bear any fruit, then we would have to come back and IID would have to find a way to put it in its capital budget. But we first want to focus on what we can do at the federal and state level. And we also have the support from our senators and our Congress members. So hopefully we'll have good news for you very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to Mr. Gonzalez, the presentation of the mayoral certificates for organizers of the 2021 Earth and Arbor Day Community Cleanup in Calexico.
Thank you very much again, Javier Gonzalez, IID. This project, we do it every year. We've been doing it for years. This has little to do with IID, but when I ran, I said we were going to do it constantly, but the COVID is here. And I just got word that Nylon wants to do it Heber wants to do it, and they want to do community cleanup and community health and safety fairs. So every year we do it in April, and then we do one in October for Crime Prevention Month. We like the city to honor and recognize the people that put it on because they've been doing it for years. And we noticed that when they get their certificate, they're very proud and they come harder for the next year. If you notice, this year, if you drive along Highway 98, all the empty lots on the south side, they're clean. What I mean clean is they still have brush, but you could definitely see the difference. There was no papers. Picked up all the papers and all the empty lots from Aurora all the way to 98, and people could see the difference. Mr. Councilmember Garcia was out there. He cleaned next to the Aurora High School. There were just a lot of paper that you touch and they broke, and it looked clean. Mr. John Moreno, everybody was out there. We had the council member. So we're going to do it again in October. The people that are receiving their award, they already said they're coming harder, faster, and they're going to bring more people. We hope to do it again, the same area, but this time try to work more on the bushes. So we're so proud that the city will recognize these volunteers, the organizations, for their effort and their support. And we already gave thanks to everybody who participated. Dr. Bo and Imperial Gold gave out shirts. So thank you very much, City of Calexico, City Clerk, Mayor, City Council, for the awards. This comes from the Mayor. So I think there's several here and there's several outside. So thank you, Mayor.
Okay.
Gracias.
So where do you have them at? You want to start?
No, you give them up, man. I think you come in here one by one.
Okay.
If they're here, let's see.
Okay, and Mayor's Award of Excellency, Presentation and Recognition for your assistance in organizing the 2021 Earth and Arbor Day Community Cleanup in Calexico. We celebrate your contribution to improving the quality of life in Calexico. We thank you for your commitment and for inspiring others to follow your example of community spirit. Can we start Kennedy Gardens neighborhood? Watch.
Vo Neighborhood Medical Center. Vo Neighborhood Medical Center. Imperial Gold.
Imperial Gold is our former city council member.
Frank Salazar.
Frank Salazar.
Oh,
And you will give a result, but we'll take it to him. Thank you very much.
Aurora High School. Crazy Bull.
So he could be here with us today, but we provided a hot and he is ready for next October.
Calexico Parents Athletic Association. Heffernan Memorial Healthcare District.
Different Memorial provided over 100 bags. They had masks, they had the gloves, they have burn gloves, and they have masks and
Sanitize.
AmeriCorps of Imperial Valley.
America, if you remember, was started by President Clinton, and all you need is give them a cup and they'll be there to help.
Calexico Bulldog Boxing Academy.
One thing we want to encourage with the kids in boxing is to be involved in the community, and they're always there.
Calexico Transit System.
Calexico Transit, let me tell you a little bit, they're ready to transport people if we need it, but they couldn't do it this time, but they always provide the drinks. And it's a little bit everybody, and that's the way to do things.
IBEW 465.
Now, IBW is the representatives of the IID employees, and they provided water, they took the water out, they had medical or even in case of emergency, so we thank them.
Elms Equipment Rental.
And Secretary Rachel provided the plus so everybody could pick up the things, and as we said, we have a little bit from everybody so we can get more participation, and not one big thing from everybody pitches in.
La Familia Boxing Club.
So that's another group that we invite, so they can, teach the kids about community responsibility.
Calexico Public Works Department.
Without them, they provide the tools, the permission, and everything. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mike Pacheco.
careful. We told him he was going to be responsible for a cruise in order to help us, and he said, yeah, I'll do it. Be responsible supervising the cruise, so we thank you very much.
GCAM Plasma Center.
They're right there.
Anyway, GCAM, they had all the employees, they did their own shirts, their own messages, and we're very glad to see that. Mayor.
Gracias.
Well, thank you very much, City of Calexico. As you know, most of the communities in the valley, they need to be cleaned up. As you know, most of the cities are lacking funding. And like Kennedy Gardens, I live in Kennedy Gardens. John F. Kennedy said, don't ask what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. We own the community. It's the community of the people. So it's our responsibility too to go out there and clean at least twice a year. And hopefully next October we'll see more people out there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gonzalez. Okay, moving on. To item 4, bi-weekly COVID update presentation by our chief.
Good evening, Honorable City Council, Mayor, to all those in attendance of our meeting today. It brings me joy to see our seats finally getting to be filled and the opportunity for our community to come in here and express themselves and gives information on how we can service the city better. I wish I had like a third of Mr. Gonzalez's energy. I love it. I'm always happy to see Mr. Gonzalez. He's doing great things for the community, and I appreciate Mr. Gonzalez. Our COVID update today will be very brief, as much of the COVID has kind of standstill. So I'll start off with our numbers. So overall, these cases are for, since COVID has begun, remember that's in the beginning of 20. Total cases for the city of Calexico are 7,248. Our active cases now, this means that people that are actually having symptoms or have tested positive for COVID is at 22. I think this is one of the lowest that we've ever had for the city. And that means a couple of things. First of all, either we're practicing good social distancing, these vaccines are working, or we're just doing a better job of taking care of ourselves, right? Total recovery is 6,996, and unfortunately, we've had 230 deaths. So one of the dates that we've been looking forward to for the last couple of weeks is the June 15th day, right? June 15th is the magic date that that California has decided to take the blueprint away from COVID. And what that means is that starting after January 15th, a lot of these restrictions will be lifted. There's obviously a plan that needs to be put in place. We'll be listening to the state and the county health department to make sure that we follow that. As far as vaccines and treatment, testing. The testing, all our sites remain the same. Dr. Vo's office, pretty much any healthcare provider that we have in the city of Calexico can offer you those tests. They can also offer you vaccines. We're now doing the vaccines from any Californian person between the ages of 12 and over are able to get their test. And to help improve this vaccination along, seems like the state of California has started a lottery. And they're willing up to give $15 million to 10 people who ever get the vaccine. It's a random draw, goes into a big lottery. If you're one of the lucky ones, you're gonna get $1.5 million. If that doesn't entice you to get your vaccine, they're also gonna do another giveaway, $50,000, and that's also gonna go to some lucky California people. One last thing that they wanna do to make sure that you get it is they're also giving away $50,000 every Friday in the month of June to make sure you get your vaccine.
You know, how does that work? Excuse me.
So there is a long, obviously, we're dealing with the state here, so what we're trying to do, what the state is trying to do is trying to make everybody get their vaccine, because once we get more people vaccinated, we'll be, what they call a herd immunity, and the chances of getting it will be slim to none, right? So a lot of people are still hesitant about getting their vaccines. So one thing that a lot of the states are doing is they're doing these raffles, they're giving giveaways. The state of California is following suit with them. And you need nothing to apply. As long as you got your vaccine, you're automatically registered into it. You'll be notified through the My Turn, the number that you guys were given when you got the vaccine. That's your number. And if you're a lucky one, my office is on 415 4th Street. That's all I have for today's COVID vaccine update. Everything seems like it'll be slower.
Una pregunta.
Yes, sir.
For the next update, the next biweekly update, just a brief request. Can you bring us numbers on how the vaccination is going, the total amount of people that have been vaccinated, if you could break it down by age, if there's data on gender, if there's data on race, if we even have location data by neighborhood, that would be nice. I don't know if that exists in the public health department, but I really would like to see just how fast we're vaccinating people, how far away we are from our goal.
Okay, thank you. And that's just for the city of Calexico, correct?
Sí, para Calexico.
Okay, we're looking at age, gender, race, and the
Neighborhood.
geographical, like the neighborhood area, okay?
Sí, es posible.
I will try my best. All right, any other questions?
Diego, what can you tell me? Is it true that people are selling fake vaccination cards?
Yeah, there's, you know,
They're going for $20, aren't they?
I couldn't tell you exactly how much, but you can meet me in the back. I'm just kidding. So yeah, unfortunately, there is these scams out there. Obviously, you know what, if you are caught with them, there is penalties for having anything that's fraud. Is considered fraudulent documentation. I couldn't tell you the prices for these things. I couldn't tell you where to get them. I just know that they are out there, yes.
That's good to know.
Thank you. No other questions?
Any more questions?
All right. Thank you, guys. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're moving on to item 14, which is Imperial County Climate Action Plan, City of Calexico.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, council members, members of the City of Calexico. My name is Virginia Mendoza. I am wanted to express my gratitude for allowing us to present to you today. I'm representing the Imperial County Transportation Commission. I served as the project manager for the development of the Regional Climate Action Plan. I do have the consultant team on standby that will be assisting me with the presentation. We did provide a staff report that is included as a part of your agenda as item 14 that summarizes the Regional Climate Action Plan specifically.
Hello, can you hear me?
That's Brenda.
I can't hear anything from the Zoom, so if the city can respond to me on the chat to verify that you can hear me, then we can talk. Okay, great. Thank you so much. I'm going to have Poonam start here.
I don't think she could hear me.
I don't think
speaking.
Poonam can hear me either because she can't hear the audio, so I'm going to have her start.
I can hear you, Brenda, if you want to
You
start
can.
screen share.
Oh, great. Thank you. All right.
Are they going to just present?
Can you see my screen? Okay, there we go. All right. Go ahead, Poonam.
Yes, I'm just waiting for confirmation on whether Virginia's done with her piece.
Okay, cool. Sorry about the delay here.
Yeah, Gabby, if you want to just go ahead and give her the green light, I'll be just present for, they're going to give the entire presentation. If you want to just on the chat to let him know to start, please. Thank you.
Okay, I have clearance. Excellent. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. I'm Poonam Boparai with Ascent Environmental. We were consultants for ICTC on the Regional Climate Action Plan that's in front of you today. The plan is the culmination of work that was initiated back in 2018. It was led by ICTC through funding from the Southern California Association of Governments, or SCAG. The CAP presents a pathway to quantify and reduce greenhouse gas emissions in the region. And in recent years, various jurisdictions within the Imperial Valley region have implemented varying levels of climate action planning or general planning activities with the intent to reduce emissions. The purpose of the CAP is to consolidate these efforts and provide support to all jurisdictions in devising and implementing greenhouse gas emissions reducing activities. So I do want to note here that ICTC was instrumental in securing the funding for this project. As a transportation agency, ICTC's role is focused on regional transportation and transit planning. As such, ICTC does not have direct enforcement authority for this regional climate action plan. The recommendations of the plan are intended to be a baseline tool for local agencies in the region. Next slide. So having a climate action plan provides several benefits for the region. As the state of California has set stringent declining greenhouse gas reduction goals, they are looking at all sources of emissions closely to achieve reductions. Having a plan that anticipates pathways to reductions can help the region be proactive in looking at feasible ways to reduce emissions. It also allows agencies to retain local control on the best way to achieve reductions rather than mandates coming down from the state. The CAP can also assist the region in securing funding for sustainability and transportation projects, streamline the process to approve projects, and achieve additional co-benefits for the community. I'll now hand it over to Brenda to cover the components of the plan.
Hi, I'm Brenda Hum. I'm with Ascent Environmental. So we'll just go over the agenda really quick here. We'll go over the background of the Climate Action Plan, an overview of the CAP, and discuss a little bit about the proposed measures in the CAP. So climate change is an unnatural warming of the Earth's climate due to increased greenhouse gas emissions, and current expected effects in the Imperial Valley include disruption of precipitation and temperature affecting reliability of water supply, and longer heat waves, which could affect a wide range of systems in the county, especially in agriculture. And the state has established goals to reduce greenhouse gas emissions to 40% below 1990 levels by 2030 and 80% below 1990 levels by 2050, which local governments are encouraged to help do their fair share to reduce. And the purpose of the CAP is to develop a plan for reducing greenhouse gas emissions, measuring progress, and improving the quality of life for residents, and aligning jurisdictional CAP efforts with regional efforts to support greenhouse gas reduction and support state GHG reduction goals as well. And as a regional CAP, the plan would provide a framework for local jurisdictions within the county to follow in terms of the recommended measures and local targets that would help the local jurisdictions play a role in demonstrating the regional alignment with the state's greenhouse gas goals. The draft regional climate action plan was circulated to local agencies in March 2021, and we received several comments on the regional CAP that have made updates to those updates per those comments. The most significant of which was a comment from the city of El Centro that had questions about agricultural emissions inventory developed for local jurisdictions, noting that ag emissions for their jurisdiction and many of the other cities seemed high given the limited ag lands in the city. And so due to the lack of local data, ag emissions were developed for individual jurisdictions through a top-down method by apportioning county-wide agricultural emissions to the jurisdictional level by agricultural jobs. But based on El Centro's comment, we revised this approach to apportion by ag acreage instead through a GIS analysis. And this resulted in the unincorporated county accounting for a greater proportion of agricultural emissions, so 99% instead of 65%. And additional changes included adjusting some greenhouse gas reduction measure assumptions, minor calculation corrections, and some clarifications in the text for stakeholder comments. So this table shows the city's 2005 and 2018 greenhouse gas baseline inventories and the legislative adjusted forecasts for 2030 and 2050, which account for the anticipated growth in the county and the city, but then are also adjusted to account for the adopted legislation such as Title 24 Building Energy Efficiency Standards, Vehicle Fuel Economy Standards that would reduce future emissions. And the most significant legislative reduction is under Senate Bill 100, which aims to account for a carbon neutral electric grid in the state by 2045. And the targets shown here were developed relative to the city's 2005 emissions. And as the state's targets are relative to 1990, and because the city doesn't have a 1990 inventory, the state's targets were adjusted and customized to the city relative to the state's inventory in 2005 and the 2030 and 2050 targets. Then we weighted the state's sector-specific targets for sources present in the region based on their relative emissions from each sector. So for example, agriculture, the state targets an 8% reduction, whereas for energy, they might target a higher percent, maybe like 60, 70%. So we weighted those sector-specific targets by the contribution of the sectors within each city. And then as shown in this table, this resulted in a target of 40% below 2005 by 2030 and 64% by 2050. And if if the city were not to pursue any additional greenhouse gas reductions under the cap, the city would achieve a 30% and 39% reduction by 2030 and 2050 instead of the 40 and 64% needed to align with the state targets. And just for comparison purposes, in 2018, there was a 25% reduction relative to 2005. And this pie chart here shows a relative contribution of the sectors. So you can see transportation accounts for 44% and energy about 39%. And the pie chart shows here the relative contribution of each agency to the total regional emissions. So for Calexico in particular, the city accounts for 6% of the region's emissions in 2018. And a large part of this is because of the agricultural emissions that are generated in the unincorporated county. All right. And then this chart shows the charting. Sorry. Shows a graphical presentation of the numbers that you saw in a couple slides earlier. And as mentioned previously, the region would achieve a 30% and 39% reduction by 2030 and 2050 instead of the 40 and 64% reduction needed to align with the state targets. And with respect to outreach and engagement efforts, the project team provided regular updates to member agencies of the ICTC Technical Advisory Committee. The team also held a series of stakeholder meetings in the summer and fall of 2020 to share the results of the greenhouse gas inventory and seek input on the proposed greenhouse gas reduction strategies and measures. The invited participants included the city's county, IID, Air District, and Agricultural Commissioner. But despite these outreach efforts, no response was received from agricultural stakeholders after several attempts. So this here is an overview of the greenhouse gas reduction measures. The CAP proposes 46 measures, 24 of which were quantified based on available data and information. And the majority of these measures were related to energy, such as accelerating the renewable energy portfolio that would outpace the state's carbon neutral grid target by 2045, and retrofitting existing buildings to make them more energy efficient. There were 16 energy measures, 15 transportation measures, 9 agricultural measures, and 6 water and solid waste measures, for a total reduction of 45,000 metric tons by 2030, which is more than the 28,000 that's needed to reach the 2030 target. And we'll see the breakdown in the reduction in a few slides. So I just wanted to discuss a little bit about the consideration of these measures. The effectiveness of the measures are highly dependent on the individual variables, such as the participation rates in agency-initiated programs. For example, these variables could include the number of EV chargers to be installed by cities at non-residential developments, percent of municipal energy use that would be offset by on-site solar, or the percent of new and existing residential buildings that can be electrified. And these measures or these assumptions are highly dependent on what each city would find feasible. And in these next few slides, we'll show the list of proposed greenhouse gas reduction measures and the potential reductions these measures could have if implemented as directed in the CAP. This table can be found in Chapter 4 of the CAP. And I'll just gloss over these tables since they're very detailed, but we can come back to them if you have any additional questions. And just really quick, for these transportation measures, most of the reductions come from both VMT reduction, that's vehicle miles traveled reduction, and clean vehicle measures. And most reductions coming from the synchronization of traffic signals to reduce idling. And then for energy and waste sectors, the majority of reductions you'll see come from this measure to establish or join program to increase grid supply renewable and zero carbon electricity. This is just trying to get the electricity to be cleaner before the 2045 target that the state has set for the statewide grid. And then agricultural measures are fairly small relative to the reductions you saw from the other sectors, since the city has a limited agricultural presence. And then this is a summary here. This table summarizes the quantified greenhouse gas reductions by sector. The majority of these reductions would come from the energy sector, which is commensurate with the overall contribution of emissions from the energy sector, about 40% in 2018. And if implemented as presented in the CAP, the estimated reductions from the proposed measures would reduce the region's emissions to 45% below 2005 levels by 2030 and 51% by 2050, also meeting the targets of 40 and 64%. And as mentioned, these reductions are highly dependent on the measure implementation and participation, which need to be supported by each individual jurisdiction. And there are additional co-benefits to implementing these measures. For example, improved energy efficiency in buildings would also result in reduced energy costs. Restoration of cleaner vehicles on the road would also mean improved air quality through lowered emissions. And with that, I'll hand it back to the ICTC team for any closing comments.
Thank you. We just wanted to, this was a very technical presentation in nature, as you can tell, but what we set out to do is create a local profile for each of the jurisdictions.
I'm sorry, it's a little hard to hear. Maybe I need to stop sharing.
Can you message her, please, Gabby? Let her know that I'm just making closing comments.
I've lost audio.
She can't hear us.
I'm going to have some questions for her. Para que no se vaya.
She's not going to leave, it's just that she can't hear she can't hear us, so we're going to have her, right? We're going to figure it out.
Yes, sounds good.
Hello? I can't hear anything. So, okay.
Did you tell her that we're going to let her know about questions? Did you let her know that we're going to let her know about questions? Please, Gabby. We did do a dry run earlier today for about an
Okay,
hour.
I see the chat. Thank you.
Okay. So, yes, so that was the presentation that we had before you. This is an item that we're only presenting to you as an information. There is no action that's being requested at this point. This is to provide you the update and baseline. I believe the city of Calexico has developed a climate action plan in the past. So what this brings to you, what we bring to you before is updated information regarding your greenhouse gas emissions. As Brenda stated, Brenda Punam stated that this is really to bring back the local control as it relates to greenhouse gas emissions and really allow the city, as well as the other cities in the county of Imperial, the opportunity to voice the realities of greenhouse gas emissions in Imperial County based on local information, not necessarily from the top down, from the state, indicating and developing these reductions. That is what we have for you before. As I mentioned, this is only an information item. There's no action required, but we're open for questions.
Sounds good.
Any questions?
Yes, but I'll yield and I'll
Do
wait
you
for
have
the-
questions?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
But I'll go ahead and, you want me to go first? Okay. Sounds good. So my first essential question, whether it's to you or to the consultant that's listening, and I know there's a 7-second lag, so I'll just give her 7 seconds to receive the message and then respond. Why did the city of Calexico not have a 1990 inventory of greenhouse gases? And why did our first inventory come so late as 2005? I wasn't born yet. What was going on in the 90s?
That's information that I don't believe was provided or developed as, for example, with some of the census information and update information that's developed for demographics. In a similar fashion, that type of data has been impacted from smaller jurisdictions such as, with smaller populations such as our county's population and our local jurisdiction. But not sure if you can post the question to her via probably text. Oh, you did? Oh, never. Thank you, Gabby.
Okay, sounds good. Let me see.
Hi. This is Poonam Boparai. I can hear I saw the question and I heard some of the response. Virginia, would you like me to add to it?
Yes, please.
Okay. And thank you for relaying the question. So really, this practice is pretty standard across the board for climate action planning. What happened was the state didn't set greenhouse gas reduction goals until 2006 when AB 32, Assembly Bill 32 was passed. And the state at that point benchmarked the goals to 1990. And the data for 1990 for energy use, for example, and fuel consumption in vehicles was available at a state level. But it's really difficult for an individual city to go back in time to that year and extract the type of data that would be necessary to develop a greenhouse gas inventory. So best practice has been to develop an inventory for a baseline year, the most recent year that you can get the data for, and then extrapolate what a reduction would be if you were to achieve 1990 levels or go below 1990 levels. So what you see here isn't atypical of the process. It's how it's done to avoid inconsistencies in data and administrative issues with trying to get data from a few decades back.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that complete response. So now, looking at the data on slideshow number 8, your consultant correctly relates to us that most of the savings that we're going to see under this climate action plan come from energy. Transportation stays just about the same from 2005 to 2050. To me, that's very concerning because if you looked at the pie chart, the two biggest chunks of pollution, 45% energy, 45% transportation, and we're only going to go after one of them. What happens to the other biggest one, which is transportation? Obviously, there's some savings. Population, we have to adjust for population growth, so you can't expect it to go all the way down, but it stays just about the same. I'm going to go into some questions about the proposals that you give for transportation, but that's just my initial observation, is that we're really going after energy, but we're almost in fact, just leaving transportation the same. Solid waste doubles in pollution between 2005 and 2050. And that's also concerning because not only on that one, I mean, we're not reducing, we're doubling. That's more emissions. Obviously, it's compensated from energy, but I mean, solid waste is a whole different animal. It kind of almost assumes that, well, we're just gonna make more trash, the planet's full of it, but we're just gonna make more trash, and we're not really gonna do anything about that. Agriculture, we're a municipality, it's not that much. Water increases slightly. So let me get into the transportation, because that's the basis of my question. My concern is mostly on the savings on the transportation initiatives. So going to slide number 13. Overall, what surprises me, and this is a question a little bit more towards ICTC and not so much for the consultant, is that none of these involve public transportation. This is a car-centric plan. It has to do with electric vehicles, a municipal vehicle fleet, some zoning changes which are good, complete streets, all of that stuff, but there's literally nothing here for biggest tool and the primary function of ICTC, which is public transportation. Why is public transportation absent here?
Yes, I can actually, it is a consultant question because they can give you more of a context as to the actual measure and the outcome and where public transportation lies in the spectrum of reducing greenhouse gas emissions, because by nature, public transportation is automatically reducing some of the individual passenger vehicles of the road, that being one factor. But I believe Poonam, and Brenda, if you can elaborate on the question of public transportation being absent, starting in slide number 13.
I heard the question fairly well, and then I heard the response a little bit more faintly. But I think overall, what you saw on slide 8 is really the challenge we face in California, because reducing transportation emissions means either making sure that origins and destinations of trips are closer to each other, which can be difficult to do with land use patterns that are already existing on the ground. There are alternative modes that can be promoted. I know transit was mentioned. There's also biking and walking. And a lot of the feedback that we did get during the stakeholder meetings was that's not really a viable option where in Imperial Valley, where destinations can be far from each other. And so the trend we're seeing statewide is there's definitely an emphasis on reducing vehicle miles traveled, but there's also an emphasis on making sure that the trips that are happening are cleaner. So that's why you see a lot of focus on increasing electric vehicles and electric vehicle charging infrastructure in the measures. And then energy is typically higher too, because that's where cities can have direct permitting authority. So if you have new development coming through, you have the ability to influence some change in that sector. So that's where you see the reductions from energy being higher. Solid waste is challenging because, again, that's a statewide issue where it's going to require reduction in organic waste, and to do that, it also requires processing facilities that can actually take that organic waste so that it's diverted away from landfills. So we see challenges in achieving zero waste or even 90-80% diversion rates sometimes because there aren't as many receiving facilities. So those are sectors absolutely that will need to continue to make progress to achieve overall goals. But I think that's why you see a little bit of the imbalance in where the reductions are coming from.
Excellent. Her name is Putnam? Putnam, thank you. Thank you so much for that complete response again, and I'll just confer with council. What she is saying is very, very important, and I'm going to also share some history of Calexico with the consultant, because sometimes consultants, they're not historians, so I'm going to share some history of Calexico. I've said this various times at council meetings, and I've made this observation that prior to the 1980s, Calexico was a walkable community. We say that after the 1980s, that's when you see the explosion of suburbs that leads us into the problem that we're seeing now. And we have some new developments that are scheduled that are in the same single-family pattern. If we really want to reach these goals, if we want to make it easier for us to reach these goals, we can't build single-family housing in the same way that we've been building it all this time. It's going to bite us in our transportation emissions. We really have to do what it says right here, which is T1.5, which is one of the higher savings, adopts zoning changes that encourage higher density mixed-use development in incorporated cities. And blessedly, with the money that's coming in from ARPA, it allows us to build affordable housing that can be high-density mixed-use. So this is something that if we really wanted to double the savings tomorrow, it would go into our ARPA plan that we create some affordable, higher density mixed-use developments to start making Calexico a little bit more walkable, to start making a denser urban core where it's not just shopping, but also a living space for our residents. I'm gonna go down this list a little bit more. T1.1, create a rideshare program for agricultural workers. Green raiteros, Dios mío. In the San Joaquin Valley, I mean, we already have that. It's called la pobreza, right? It's called poverty. This is where I really think, this exists because this is how our community and our society is structured here culturally. But we can definitely do something, the Farm Worker Service Center that Mr. Moreno has proposed and been encouraging, that can come into this green plan. And if we incorporate it with public transit, we can just get rid of the green raiteros and make it agricultural public transit, so agricultural workers can just use public transit to get to work. Second observation, we say, and I know Mr. Escobar is here, and I've heard just about every county supervisor say this, that we're a big county, and we are in some aspects. We are in landmass, but most of that landmass is desert. Most of the populated areas are actually in a very small space. From Calexico to Calipatria, it's 40 miles. From Santa Cruz to Salinas, for example, is 40 miles. Santa Cruz to Salinas, that's 2 counties. Even with the added challenge of coordinating with another county, they have functioning public transportation for those 40 miles. You can get from Salinas to Santa Cruz in an hour and a half during peak traffic. It actually takes you longer to wait in traffic if you decide to drive. So I disagree with distances are long. Distances are long for communities that are much further away, like Nyland, Winter Haven, but those represent a very small amount of our population. The big population centers, Calexico, Heber, Imperial El Centro, Brawley, Calipatria, are actually very close to each other, and we just need more direct routes. And I think that's where I had a conversation with ICTC President Mike Basa, and I know you guys are aware of this. This is, very small reduction, but surprisingly, this green raiteros is a bigger reduction than bicycle lanes. And this is a question for Putnam now. Is this number so low because we expect these bike lanes to not be used very often?
Thank you, Councilmember. I think I heard the question. So you're asking why the reductions from the Green Right Arrows program or comparable program are higher than the bike lanes?
Yes.
Yes. So the way we quantify these reductions is based on empirical studies, and what's been found is that if you have bike lanes that are within a community, the trips are typically shorter, so the benefit is lower. and you need better connectivity across different communities to get higher reductions. Bike lanes in general are a great measure to implement for various reasons, but the return in terms of greenhouse gas reductions alone is fairly low. Brenda can help me with the exact number, but I believe it's for every mile of bike lane, it's maybe like less than a 1% reduction in vehicle miles traveled. So really what you're seeing is an artifact of the empirical data that shows the effectiveness of this measure.
Excellent, and I think the key part of your I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. This is Brenda. And like I mentioned earlier in the presentation, it really depends on the assumptions that are built into the calculations. So for new bike lanes in Calexico, I think we assumed 10 to 30 new miles of bike lanes. So it's a really, if that number were to go up, then we could take further reductions. But yeah, those are some assumptions that will need to be verified.
Excellent, thank you. I was going to go back to a key point that Putnam made, is that we can increase the savings from bicycle lanes if they're done in conjunction with, if they lead into public transportation. Again, I'm going to come back to Santa Cruz. Santa Cruz doesn't have a very sophisticated public transit system, but it has one that is very, very functional. They have diesel buses. They don't have trains. They don't have anything expensive. They just have diesel buses that you can put your bike on, right? And Calexico is still small enough that at least for inner city mobility, that could work, but that would take the collaboration of the city in conjunction with ICTC to coordinate those routes and just multiply these savings. Item T14, 424, this is a great complete streets, and we've talked about this with Smart Growth, myself and Mr. Garcia up here on the dais several times, where we've come into consensus that we need complete streets in Calexico. The way that streets are designed in Calexico need to change. They do need to change in various ways. One of those ways is that they need to facilitate the usage of public transit. They need to facilitate the usage of bicycles into the public transit system. And they need to be able to encourage pedestrians and road diets. Road diets are important. So T14 is one of those items that we can immediately act on with what we have on our agenda right now. We are going to approve or accept our SB1 funding that administratively and ultimately the council will decide what roads get paved and what designs and this and that. Also on our agenda is we're going to get...
excuse me, Mr.
Yes?
Ureña, but keep to the subject, please.
I'm specifically talking about complete streets and where we have an opportunity to do that.
You've been talking for about, what, 15 minutes
Yeah,
already?
this is a pretty big topic,
Yes,
Madam
it is,
Mayor.
but
Yes.
maybe you could do the research and then later on we could bring it back to the table.
No, I'm bringing up specific things that we can do right now. You can step out, don't worry. So, as I was saying, we're going to accept two things on this agenda. The relinquishment of State Route 111 from Highway 98 to 2nd Street. And we're going to accept our SB1 funding. Imperial Avenue, with the pedestrian car accident rate and the pedestrian to vehicle car accident rate that happens there, we have an opportunity to make Imperial Avenue part of our downtown with a road diet and a complete streets ordinance plan that also just happens to reduce our vehicle emissions to get us closer to this goal. So, I mean, all of these numbers, like Putnam said, are based on a lot of assumptions, and one of the biggest assumptions is what we're going to do as a council. Yes, Senor Garcia?
You know what, Councilman Ureña, I think that's very enlightening.
Sí.
And I like the conversation and this facts and information that you're sharing. And I think just for essence, I think, if we can just move on and maybe perhaps later have a very, probably arrange a meeting or with ICTC. I think all of this is great. I love it. And I have my follow-up questions also But in essence of time, I think, we're jumping from one item to the next. So if I can just, thank you and hopefully arrange a meeting, I definitely want to discuss this in length.
Yes.
And probably make this a meeting just on that.
Yes.
So if you don't mind, so we can just move on because, I think we can't really accomplish all of this that you have, which is great. But if we can just set it aside and probably you and I and the rest of the council can really get our heads together and work on that.
If I can get your promise right here that we will have that complete meeting, I will stop my questions and leave them for that meeting. Happily.
At least if we can just, for essence of time, and I think, giving the public the opportunity to also chime in. I mean, all of this is important, walkable streets, bike lanes. I have tons of questions also. Monies, how do we make this happen? What are we talking about here? I have questions how these numbers came about. I have questions as to greenhouse, why do we have only 6%? When we have the border. So I have tons of questions. But if we can just set aside something, so we can move on.
Madam Mayor, could we have a special meeting just on this topic so we can discuss it at length?
Well, maybe we could just, I'm sorry, Madam
But
Mayor,
right now
maybe
we're
we can do
gonna
a
move on,
subcommittee or
okay?
something, where we can, if you don't mind, in a subcommittee, and then we can report and then arrange a meeting, so.
Which committee?
A subcommittee or something. I'm just throwing ideas.
Okay.
So we can just concentrate and really take a deep dive into this subject. So we can just.
If that's a promise, I'm very happy with that response because this is a very important topic that literally affects the whole city. Muchas gracias, señor Carmelo.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, Virginia. Thank you to the presenters.
Muchas gracias. Thank you for
Very
handling my
interesting
questions.
subject, and thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Supervisor Escobar, do you have any comments?
This is the time for the public to address the city council on any item not appearing on the agenda that's within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city council. During the current state of emergency, public comments will be received in the following ways. Submit public comments via email by 2 p.m. on June 2nd, 2021, or via fax 760-768-2103. These comments will be read aloud during the meeting and entered into the record. Make the public comment via Zoom. You will have to submit your comment and specify whether you want public comments or a specific agenda item. Any comments received during or after the meeting will be distributed to the City Council and retained for the official record. City Council is prohibited by state law from taking action or discussing items not included on the printed agenda.
Is she going to do public comments, or you want me first, Mayor? Okay, thank you. Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, Miguel, Gaby, muchas gracias. Just a couple quick comments, I'll be brief. Some of you know about the pilot program that occurred in the county of San Diego with the Mexican consulate where they were vaccinating foreign nationals on the U.S. side. We are working with a number of different entities to try to bring this pilot program to our port of entry. Obviously, logistically, it's somewhat of a nightmare, but we're working on it. I will keep you posted. But at this point, all I can tell you is we are working on it. I think it's a priority. As you all know, we've reached a plateau. We've talked about this before. We have a plethora of vaccines. Whoever wants to get vaccinated, got vaccinated. Whoever doesn't want to get vaccinated, at this point, is not going to get vaccinated. So I will keep you posted. I'm happy to report that Clark Road was approved a few weeks ago at the Board of Supervisors. So that's on the 21-22. It's out for bid. It's a huge issue. It's not technically in my district, but it's huge for Calexico because it's a highly transited thoroughfare within our county. Barker Road, Anderhold Road, Jasper Road. Well, I'll skip Jasper Road for a couple seconds. Barker Road and Anderhold have been added to the 21-22 plan that should be coming to the Board of Supervisors hopefully in a couple weeks. So I'm very excited about that as well. Jasper Road, I'm setting up a meeting with Mr. Figueroa, Ms. Palomir, as you know, Jasper Road is literally believe you had a question, Councilmember Ureña.
Yes,
You
sir.
mentioned Carr Road. I believe you wanted to say Anza Road. In the city limits, Second Street becomes on the outside, on the outskirts, basically outside city limits, it becomes Anza Road. So the issue with Anza Road and the bridge that's been closed for years, it was literally worked on for numerous years, literally a decade, and Caltrans yanked it from us. We are trying to renegotiate with Caltrans to see what we can do, but obviously it's Caltrans, so the negotiation process is very slow.
Yeah.
A couple more items that I want to discuss with you.
Señor
Actually,
Escobar.
one more. I'm very excited about this. I'm not excited about the price. I'm very thankful that we're not paying for it. $103 million. President Biden's budget includes, and it's the only port of entry that includes our demolition reconstruction of the pedestrian port of entry. That's going to be a game changer. If you think about it, we're going to go from 10 lanes to 16 within hopefully a calendar year. That's obviously vehicular traffic, Calexico West. It is in his budget. It's a huge budget. Así van a estar republicanos y demócratas. Pero al final de cuentas, it's there, $103 million, and it's the only land port in his budget, which is huge for us. And likely it means, independent of all the infighting, it likely will stay. So I'm very excited about that. Again, that's going to be a game changer for downtown Calexico. It needs all the help we can get. We're hoping that the port of entry opens soon. The latest chisme is that we will be opening up hopefully by the end of July. Oh, that's unofficial, but we're keeping our fingers crossed because again, that's going to help out the downtown the downtown businesses and obviously their financial pocketbooks. But again, this is definitely a game changer. It's in his budget, and it's the only port of entry in his budget, which is very good for us. So if you don't have any questions, that's all.
Oh, quick question. Preguntita de volada. On the transportation, on the roads that you were talking about, now that we just discussed some things that we can do in coordination and the impacts that it's going to have on our climate action plan, it would actually be great if, because, I mean, we can do whatever we want in the city, but as soon as it's inner city, we're going through county roads, and we would like those county roads to be public transit accommodating, as we transition away from cars and all that stuff. ¿Es posible si la Junta de Supervisores, the County Board of Supervisors, can host this discussion that was proposed here? So that way we can do it in Sintonía County, your agency, ICTC, and ourselves as a city.
It's an important comment that you just made, but also we have to think about two things. One is our wish list, and one is realistically what we can afford.
Sí.
And I think that there's a fine line between both. So I would definitely entertain that discussion, but we have to be very careful with taxpayer dollars, especially with SB1 funds that are extremely limited, and we all know that. So again, I'm not disagreeing with you, but we have to be very careful in our budgetary process.
Sí. I'm just asking if we can have the meeting.
Understood.
Sí.
Understood.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it.
Muchas gracias.
Any further comments?
Jason Jung?
Can we start the clock? Gabby?
All right. So at this time, I would like to invoke my ADA accommodation like Mr. Ureña did in El Centro yesterday and get my extra minute and a half. If you need, I will provide proof to you that I do have an ADA condition. And I don't care, and I'll prove it and provide it for you. But for this, I don't have it right now, so if you need it, let me know. So, all right, I'm here because our councilman, Mr. Ureña, has made some real stupid comments in reference to law enforcement. Partly, but he's partly right also. Most people call me a law enforcement basher, whatever, this and that. And I'm not here to bash on law enforcement. What I am going to tell you is this. And you need to listen to this. Because you know what? Your ignorant comments have pissed a lot of people off in the law enforcement community. Because you have never done the job, will never do the job, because you're not qualified to do the job. My knee is messed up from doing the job. In 2003, there was an incident where somebody came in to report a stolen vehicle. The vehicle was not stolen. This female gave it to a parolee. The guy was at large. Units were dispatched to 3rd and Blair. We got there. I was a 3rd officer on scene. And unfortunately, I'd been on the force for 6 months, and the other 2 guys that were there, Mario Salinas and Raul Gonzalez, were on the force for about 2 to 3 months. When we got there, we made contact with the parolee, took them into custody, and they're handcuffed. Supposedly, the parolee was in the back of the car trying to get up or whatever. And at that time is when Salinas and Gonzalez pulled him off the vehicle and beat the snot out of this guy when he was handcuffed. Rodney King style. So you know what? When you go say that El Centro Imperial and CHP did this, you need to check the facts here first before you speak out of your you know what. As soon as the incident occurred, I reported it to my immediate supervisor, who was Sergeant Legaspi. And you don't need to take notes, because I'll tell you exactly who was involved in this. That night, I reported to actually Sergeant Legaspi and Sergeant Padilla. The next day, I was told to come back into shift when I was going on days off. I was to report back to the PD at 0800 hours and report it to the chief and the lieutenants, which I did. Later on that morning, somebody came in and reported it to the chief now. He was a sergeant back then, and he could corroborate this. I don't know if you remember or not. But it was reported by a civilian that the incident occurred. Sergeant Matuz, may he rest in peace, was our IA contracted investigator at the time. Went to Imperial County Jail, took pictures of the guy. The guy was beaten, bruised, purple, red, and green from the neck down. An investigation was opened, and the officers' proper corrective action was taken. Shortly after that, quote unquote, somebody put rat bitch on my locker. That was on there for years till I retired. And when I retired, they just spray painted over it. And I encourage every single one of you to go look in the PD locker and look at that locker that says rat bitch on it. Because that should be buffed out and taken out. Because you know what? The new officers that are coming into this department should know, most likely ask what it is. If they remember what it is and what it was, it's not right for them. Because you know what? Yeah, there is the code of silence that's quote unquote set. But at the same time, that code of silence needs to go away. But you know what? You're shaking your head yes. But don't shake your head yes so quickly. Because you're ignorant of the fact that when we go out in the field and deal with the scum of the earth, people that you don't want to deal with, and they are going to pull a gun out, a knife, a weapon, a stick, and beat the hell out of one of these guys, they're going to take the proper action. You'll never see somebody say, hey, this cop beat the hell out of somebody just because they're bored. They may have beaten the hell out of somebody because that person did not comply with their officer's request. Put your hands up, stop, don't run. Because you know what? Every single one of these officers here has a family to go to at the end of the night. And you have no right to render judgment on any of these guys because you have never worn that uniform and you've never done the job. So stop criticizing law enforcement, and BLM can go to hell. Bunch of racist bastards.
Was he given extra time? ¿Le dieron los 4 minutos? Sí. Excellent. Muchas gracias, señor Young.
Lorena Minor.
Good evening, council and everyone present. If you can take a look. On August 18, 2019, I need my glasses, I'm getting old. I had an accident at approximately 5 in the morning on the north side of town. Someone other than myself called 911 for help. I was transported to El Centro Regional Medical Center via ambulance. The ambulance that was used was AMR, American Medical Response. I never heard anything from anyone after I received my statements until September 15, 2020. This is more than a year later. I received a questionnaire from Pinnacle Claims Management, which is my insurance company, and it was titled Lane Accident Details, and it's the first page on the packet I gave you. The questionnaire asked if my accident had been work-related, who was at fault, if I had an attorney, if I had a second insurance, and so forth. I filled it out and I sent it in. Never heard anything again. On February 2nd of this year, I received a letter from AMR stating my insurance company had sent partial payment. Mind you, this had been after my copays and everything else, and that's I believe, the second page, the third page on the packet. After 2 appeals with Pinnacle Claims Management and numerous conversations and emails back and forth with our city's HR director and AMR billing department, I was advised by both parties that number one, the billing my insurance did, AMR had overbilled 400% over what our insurance covers. Now, mind you, I'm here as an employee, and I'm also here as a citizen of Calexico. My insurance says that AMR charged 400% of what it usually covers, and the letter's in there as well. I included it. Second thing that I was told by my HR director is that AMR is not part of my insurance network provider. Now, I asked myself, who's our ambulance in Calexico right now? And it's not part of my network on my insurance company?
Okay.
At the end of the day, I'm stuck with a bill after everyone was billed, and it's on there for $1,070.32. My frustration is how can an ambulance serving our community, and at times the only ambulance serving this city, not be a provider with my insurance company? Who else has this happened to besides myself? I'm scared to call 911, to have an ambulance transport me or any of my family members. So the information is there, and I'm just going to close really quick by telling you guys that I want you guys to look at this. The city does not have a contract with AMR, only the county. And the city's losing money. If you guys can look into getting a policy, maybe having them become a provider for our insurance as well. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that.
Luis Casillas.
If you guys come up here, can you guys grab one of these and wipe it down the web? Thank you.
Good evening, members of the public, members of the council. It's nice to be back in here again. It's been a couple years, some familiar faces. And my name is Luis Casillas. I am the president of the Police Officer Association. I represent the CPOA. We represent the police officers and the 911 dispatchers. I'm sorry to hear that story from Mrs. Minor. It's one of my topics here tonight. We have a lot of issues within our police department. Everything from personnel issues to equipment, building, just an extensive list of issues that we've got going on in our very own backyard. But the real reason that I'm here today is not to talk about those issues, but talk about the safety. The safety that the public is lacking in this community. The safety of the citizens that you represent, that we serve, is at risk. We simply don't have enough officers on the street, enough 911 dispatchers on the street. We don't even have an ambulance out there. It's pretty embarrassing. It's a disservice to the community to call the Navy base and have them send an ambulance or have AMR. Where did we go wrong? It's embarrassing. How is it possible that a city of 40,000 people has 2 police officers at one time? And if someone goes to jail, guess what? Now you got 1. This is a cry for help. Today, you are the 911 dispatcher. We're calling you for help. This is the calm before the storm. As you heard from the past speakers, everything's going to start opening up. The schools, the port, all the businesses, and we just simply don't have enough staff. We don't have the staffing levels to provide the service that we need for this community. And it is embarrassing.
Mr. Casillas, will you lower your voice?
I will not. We as an association.
Will you respect an elected official, please, sir?
Shut your trap.
Wait a minute, Mr. Casillas.
We as an association are asking you, the governing body. Everyone should be mad in this town. It's embarrassing. We as an association are asking you as a governing body for a quick and swift resolution to this matter. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Elda González.
Good evening, members. My name is, of the City Council, my name is Griselda Gonzalez. I'm a board member for the POA. Tonight, I am representing our communication center, dispatch. I will be the voice of a very special group of individuals that have been neglected for years. How? There's an existing long-time hiring issue that needs to be addressed. There's currently 7 dispatchers covering 4 12-hour shifts. The problem, 2 12-hour shifts only have 1 dispatcher for a population of over 40,000 in Calexico, plus 10,000 daily crossers from Mexicali, where very often we have to put callers on hold, including 911 emergency calls. The reason is there's only 1 dispatcher handling police, medical, fire, traffic control, animal control, counter traffic, business lines, special details with the district attorney's office agents, narcotic task force, assisting border patrol, customs and border protection, also networking with other county agencies and utilities. We also take 911 emergency calls that bounce off of the Calexico towers from Mexicali, a population of over 1 million people. 1 dispatcher multitasking on a 12-hour shift, unable to take breaks, eating lunch while handling calls, radio traffic and inputting critical information into law enforcement database, which is the LEA web. Also, waiting for an available officer for a restroom break, sometimes causing medical issues. There is a desperate need for hiring of more dispatchers. These are a few of the issues encountered at our communication center, and I am appealing to you to take action, do what's in the best interest of our community. Our community deserves a fully staffed police department to keep our families and local businesses safe. Help us to effectively and efficiently do our job by hiring personnel and making public safety a priority. In closing, I want to thank the council for your time, and hopefully we can find resolution to this matter that affects everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Daniela Murillo.
Good
evening, members of the City Council. My name is Daniela Murillo, and I'm a first responder dispatcher, and I am a member of the Calexico Police Officers Association. As many of us know, May was Mental Awareness Month, and as most of the city employees, we have received multiple emails promoting mental awareness, even though they don't really take action to protect us. As you heard from my coworker, we are extremely short-staffed, meaning we are overworked, which makes it extremely difficult to maintain mental awareness. Most of us dispatchers rely on one another. Most of the time, they refuse to call in sick when we are really sick because we do not want to force someone else to cover. Yes, force. There has been situations when a dispatcher calls in sick and officers have to go to our own houses searching for us to be mandated to go to work. There has been times when I've gone to even Yuma or somewhere else far away because I just want to enjoy one simple paying day off. But instead of hiring more personnel, the city prefers to burn out their own people and get them to a breaking point. I personally have experienced and have seen coworkers suffering from anxiety attacks, get mentally exhausted, and feel physical pain from all the multitasking that we do in order to provide the best service for the public. I find it extremely difficult to take care of others when we are trying to take care of ourselves. If truly you supported mental health, like you say in the emails that we always receive, you would have addressed the situation a long time ago. Thank you for your time.
Muchas gracias.
Raúl Ureña.
My dad, myself?
Mr. Ureña, your dad was here, but he took off.
Ah, se fue. Okay.
Sí, García.
Jesse Garcia, I think he took off too. He was on the motorized scooter.
Ben Risen.
Can you hear me? You know, I've been going to these meetings a few times, and I do appreciate, you know, the comments and the exploration of questions that are being asked. But I thought today I was going to spend all evening here listening to Raul's interpretation and his examination on this stuff and dealing with climate change. And I appreciate if you just stop it. You know, it's quite aggravating. And there's viewers, everybody sitting here, they have a responsibility, they have a family here. I don't think you're considering that. So I've gone to the point that I'm really aggravated to take it back by you. And I appreciate your time and have a good night.
Muchas gracias.
Chief Gerardo.
Gracias.
Well, good evening. What I passed out to you is our use of force policy. And I'll real quick, briefly, I'm sorry. I will read something we already are practicing and already have it in policy, but let me get that to you later. I got something first that I got to say. And this has been really bothering me, you know, and I had to write it down so I would stay on track. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council, ladies and gentlemen present today and watching this meeting through the internet. My name is Gonzalo Gerardo, not Chalo Guerrero, Chalo Gonzalez. I am the Chief of Police, and I'm honored to be your Chief of Police, and also honored to have given the city of Calexico 30 years of my service. I am here today to make a statement on behalf of men and women of the Calexico Police Department. The Calexico Police Department is not in agreement with a comment Councilmember Raul Ureña made on May 5th, 2021, during a discussion on agenda item number 16, which was a letter of support for SB2. I explained to the council why the city should not write a letter of support. However, during my rebuttal to Mr. Ureña, he made an uncalled comment while on the dais accusing the City of El Centro Police Department, Imperial Police Department, and the California Highway Patrol of police brutality. We all know of incidents that unfortunately occur, and they occurred in those cities. And in the untrained and unknowledgeable eyes, these appear to be police brutality. To the best of my knowledge, these past incidents you mentioned were investigated internally and externally. The officers involved were cleared of any wrongdoing. See, I too in the past have been critical and wrong, and I said I've been wrong, in expressing or Monday morning quarterbacking some incidents involving police actions. And I apologize if I ever did something and called it out before all the evidence was through. I've learned that looking at these types of incidents with emotion only and not facts is not the best approach. We all live in a glass house. One point that I want to make clear is that no matter what the outcome in an investigation is involving police brutality or alleged police brutality, people will always file a lawsuit. Everybody here knows that we live in a state that's lawsuit happy. And most of the times, it costs less to settle a case out of court than spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in attorney fees and court costs. The fact is that money paid out in a settlement is not the result of the officer's wrongdoing. Madam Mayor, I only have three pages to go.
3 pages to go?
Well, I mean, they're 28 font, so they're not. I can continue another meeting if you want to. Okay. On Tuesday, June 1st, 2021, Mr. Ureña attended the El Centro City Council meeting. Mr. Ureña was given 4.5 minutes to speak and did not get a chance to present his views to the city of El Centro. However, Mr. Ureña did quote me on the comment that I had made from a previous city council meeting. The quote is, "As a police chief, I do not want corrupt officers. As a police chief, I don't want officers that get away with wrongful use of force. I implore you as a council, don't do this because you're just going to send the wrong message to a police department in a community that is, in reality, we don't really have a problem with police brutality. You guys know use of force and police brutality are two different things. And I did say, knock on wood, we don't have a problem with this stuff. The nation may be facing it. I don't know if you guys noticed it. These are the quotes. But most of these problems are on the East Coast, and I'll stand behind what I said. The Police Advisory Commissioner, Ismael Arvizu, also spoke at the El Centro City Council meeting yesterday. In the past, Mr. Arvizu has made comments and accusations disturbing other people in our police department and me. Mr. Arvizu's remarks yesterday were, and this was taken from the Calexico Chronicle, "This is what worries me, how defensive you guys are," and he was telling this to the El Centro City Council. "How scared this conflict, this talk, this opinion has you," Arvizu said. "I love police officers. I saw Chalo Guerrero, Calexico Police Chief, when I was coming to El Centro, and he said, be careful, but the police is a system," and this is what gets me. "The police is a system that comes from racism. They protect property and protect profit, and the police obey the law, but sometimes they act like executioners. They kill." Arvizu shouted for emphasis. "When they're not supposed to kill, This type of outburst and the past comments he has made and other incidents involving the police do not represent the productive and ethical police advisory commissioner's behavior. Since Mr. Ureña, you weren't be able to say something, and I'm going to cut this short. You did have your, you spoke at the steps of the Superior Courthouse. And one of the things that kind of upset me on this was that I did mention that police budgets, when you cut police budgets, your training is the first thing that gets cut. And I'm not lying there. What I didn't like is that you said that training is the first thing to go, is my administrative decision and not the council's. Mr. Ureña, it is not my decision when the city of Calexico does not have the funding or cuts your training budget. I would love to send out all my people to training. I would like to hire people, but if they don't give me the money, I can't do it. So in essence, it is a city council's decision. You also mentioned the Rodney King incident. The Rodney King incident happened over 30 years ago, on March 3rd, 1991. It was at the beginning of my police career. I don't think you were born. Everybody else here was born, was alive back in 1991. This incident brought many changes to law enforcement, use of force policies, laws, and held officers accountable. When you were elected, Mr. Ureña, I invited you to the Calexico Police Department, and you saw during that time that I was updating our policy that included the end to the use of the carotid restraint, and I explained to you. I also showed you our body cameras and told you that we did not have any deletion or editing rights, and I also chose to do this out of transparency and accountability. That's why we went this way. You went on and right along to show you what we did. You only wrote for around 3 hours. If you have any questions, you can come and see me. We don't have to get like this, the way this led to. Mr. Ureña, human beings learn from past events, and we change wrong actions into good actions. That's what a human being does. You cannot live in the past but improve, not to make the same errors. If that is the case, then we should just blame Adam and Eve for eating from the forbidden fruit and keep on going to that, referring everything to that. I'll close first and I need to make this public because it caused a lot of headaches for me. I want to first apologize to the officers and the staff of my department, the El Centro Police Department, Imperial Police Department, and the California Highway Patrol for the words that were said about their agencies on May 5th. But unfortunately, these words do not represent our gratitude and excellent relationships that we have with one another, to the rest of our law enforcement allies, public safety allies, and the community of Calexico. We will continue to strive. We will continue to strive with each other to try to get a better community going. With the help of the council and with having open minds and be receptive to change. The change also has to come from up here, not just from us. Now, going to this real quick, use of force. One of the top topics that's going on SB 26. There are certain topics that are going on there, but I want you to look at the highlighted section where it says 300.2.1, duty to intercede and report. It is a policy of the Calexico Police Department that we have to intercede. We have the duty to intercede and report any use of force or any bad conduct. And it's in writing. We didn't have this before, and it's in writing now. Thank you very much.
Mr. Gerardo, one question about that use of force policy.
Mr. Ureña, you are not to speak.
Okay, go ahead. I can ask anybody else questions except the police officer, right?
That's all we have, ma'am.
Okay, moving on. City manager's report.
Mayor, city council members, members of the community, there are a couple of items that I'm going to be bringing up to your attention. One of them is that tomorrow the city will hold a special meeting to have a presentation of the proposed budget for fiscal year 21-22. It's going to take place at 3 o'clock. And I want to be clear, it's a presentation of the proposed budget. The week following, we will have public hearings in which department heads will be coming up I'm sorry. Gary just played a joke on me, so I lost my train of thought. All right, I'm sorry. So next week, we're going to be having the public hearings with departments in which they're going to be able to showcase to the council the list of items that they deem necessary to operate their department based on the needs that they've assessed. Following that, I also want to point out that we have an expectation come June 16th that we present a budget for discussion and action. So I want to be clear on the steps that we're following within our budget process to stay true to what we said, despite the additional time it's taken for us to come up with a proposed budget, given the uncertainties of ARPA money, of the multi-million revenue losses the city has experienced, on top of addressing and making sure that we remain at a minimum status quo as it pertains to the current staffing levels. One of the reasons that I still, this morning when I had my department head meeting, that I told my department heads that it's worth their time to come in and tell you as the city council their list of items in their public hearing presentation is because once monies, based on the determination that this council makes, you guys will be informed and I will be informed of the items that need to be prioritized. I also want to point out that one of the biggest items that I've received direction on from the council to look into and follow up on is with an expenditure plan for the ARPA monies. As I was sharing to some of the council members, the most recent update we received from the U.S. Department of Treasury, the Department of Finance, the State Controller's Office, and the California League of Cities for non-entitlement cities, which is where Calexico falls under, was May 26th. At this point, we don't have yet an official figure as it pertains to the ARPA monies the city's going to receive. Yes, we have been aware, we have seen, I have shared with you some of the preliminary estimates that are out there. But to this day, we don't have an exact dollar figure. However, in-house, one of the things that I've circled and communicated to my department heads is the fact that we can begin to prioritize what it is that we, as an administration, will inform the council that we need. Number one, we need to make sure that we maximize the amount of money for our revenue losses dating back to March 2020. There is a formula that provides a cap as to how much local jurisdictions can maximize as it pertains to revenue losses. We're not going to be able to recoup everything, so that's important. Number two, there's a compensation section there that's identified for government workers that also needs to be looked at. And there are also infrastructure COVID-related projects that the city can look into. As details continue to surface, we'll be able to package and have something with a better shape as to what we're going to be able to use these monies for. This will come up in tomorrow's presentation because we need to, again, and I want to be clear, given the lack of detail on the rules that we will have to follow, we are being extremely conservative on the proposed budget as it pertains to ARPA monies. With that said, there was a request by Councilwoman Gloria G. Romo at the last City Council meeting pertaining to the Traffic Control Office on Pollen Avenue as it pertains to the status of the office, the usage of the office, and any improvements that are needed. So for that, I'm going to call on the police chief to give a report on that.
So on the traffic control office, we have 2 full-time employees and 2 permanent part-time. Actually, 1 because there's a vacancy. And we have between 10 and 12 temporary part-timers, which are what we call Hunter employees, because we use Hunter Employment Agency. The traffic control office does need work, but we have made some progress. We went ahead and they needed a new water heater, put a new water heater, their AC gets serviced. If they need a new one, they get a new one. One of the things that we did order this past or 2 weeks was a new hand push bar to open up their magnetic door locks because it was malfunctioning. So we ordered a new one, and we did order a new lock mechanism too, and we're getting a new handle with a lock different, so that way they have different ways of getting out if they need to get out. Getting in is not the problem, but in case of an emergency, that was a problem that we had, and we're gonna fix. As for everything else, just like every other city facility, they do need improvements. And we're gonna try to work and see if we can squeeze it in when we get some of that money, or try to work it in our budget to try to get them their workspace working. We did buy them new computers about 2 years ago, 2 of them, and they have radios. I did buy them 2 years ago. They had 1 van, 1 pickup truck, and 2 of the new 3 wheels, so they call them Go-Force, brand new that they got 2 years ago. So that's the status. They also carry body cameras, the ticket riders that they have, all that stuff is equipment that it gets replaced because we have a contract with the company. Any questions regarding that, Ms. Romo? ¿No tiene preguntas?
I do, if I may. Chief Arado, thank you very much. What's the whole purpose of having a facility there?
So the purpose of the facility is actually to have, when they first got put out there, we used to have an officer, and I believe he's gone already. It was Jason Jung. When he was an officer, he used to patrol that, and he used to have that area where people used to be able to go and ask questions. He would go take his breaks, use the restroom, because they have their own restroom in there. But then after a while, we brought in the traffic controllers in there too, and they work out of that office. They have all the equipment to fix the meters in there on downtown. They have where they can put their lunch. They can take a quick break or use a restroom if need so. It's not really to house anybody there. It's usually you'll have 1 or 2 full-timers that are there. Not most of the time, some of the time, because once traffic builds up, they're out there doing their job.
Right, thank you.
Thank you for this report about we need to support workers in the traffic control area, not only with better salary, for example, but with better facility and work department. Miguel, I didn't that 7.5 million for COVID, only for all the time for traffic control and animal control. I don't know what is happening, and I will also like to hear at the next meeting again about for the animal control. Is possible, please?
Ms. Romo, I can get it out of the way right now. So the animal control facility was a yes. So the animal control facility does also need work. I mean, and this is stuff that we have been asking for. Our animal control officers do a lot. There's 2 of them that do a lot, and we do need to have somebody there during the day so they can go out and do their job. And I only have 2, and yes, and then we're going to bring back our volunteers the first Saturday after June 15th, but they only go on Saturdays between in the morning between 8 and 12. But if our animal control has to leave, he has to lock up because there has to be somebody from city staff there to make sure that they don't get hurt or they don't get bit, with other animals that might get out of their cages. We do have people that have donated to the animal control facilities. 2 years, last year, this year, we bought 2 new freezers, and those freezers are used to put dead animals in there when we find them out in the street, which we get a lot of dead animals. And then we do house them. We do work with the shelters from in the area and out of the area to pick up some of our animals that don't get claimed. We do euthanize the ones that cannot be adopted out because either they're too aggressive or they're sick. So it's another area that costs money. One of the things I would like for them to get is a real animal control vehicle, like the city of El Centro, the city of Imperial, and the county has. But like I said, I mean, if the city does not have the funds for it, we have to make do with what we have. And that goes for, I mean, the whole, at least my whole department. And like you said, we all need to upgrade our facilities. If you're more than welcome to visit the police department. I had extended my invitation to all of you guys before, so you guys can see, and I'm pretty sure that Mr. Figueroa has it planned out to do a tour of the PD. But if you see the conditions that we have, you're also going to be surprised at the conditions that we have at the police department. Thank you.
Gracias.
Madam Mayor, the last item on my report, I've been in contact with the Public Health Director for the County of Imperial all week. I'm very happy to share that there's a substantial amount of progress being made as it pertains to what Supervisor Escobar mentioned on the binational inoculation project. So I'm very happy to share that, one, the health department is keeping me updated, and two, that they are making substantial amount of progress. One thing though is that we're being very cautious because we want to make sure that we provide the proper information once it's ready. So in the coming days, please be aware, because we're going to be using our mediums to disclose to the community what this project is going to entail, what it's going to require, so anybody that can benefit from it. That's my report. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Muchas gracias.
Okay, City Council comments. I'm going to start to my left. Mr. Garcia?
You guys, some time, I'll be really short. I just attended that League of Cities meeting. That was a very, good meeting. As you know, a lot of the elected officials from throughout the county get a chance to get together. And even though it was through Zoom, I think it's very dynamic. It's very important that we attend, because a lot of great information is shared. Something new to me that was presented during this past meeting, it was Mr. Huberger from LAFCO actually did a kind of like a 101 on LAFCO and what they do. So I think, as a new council member, that was a learning experience, and that I will make sure that I will follow up, because that's something that concerns our city in many fronts. So I invite the rest of you to make an effort to attend and be part of that. So with that, I know that's all I have to say.
Okay. Mrs. Romo?
Thank you, ma'am. Just a comment, the slide had maybe 5 today.
Excuse me.
I can hear you.
Excuse me. Yeah. I have received 5 complaints from the Daniel Gutierrez Park. Apparently, a sport event, Madam Mayor, was cancelled. I spoke with Director Gonzalez and Ms. Falomir. And Ms. Falomir, excuse me, Madam, she explained the problem maybe in 1 minute. Please, what is the problem in Gutierrez Park? In 1 minute, please. Thank you.
For about 2 years now, we've been having some issues at Daniel Gutierrez Park where we see a rise in water level in the IID Canal, and it's coming back into our storm drain system. And the first thing, it goes into our retention basin. Several months ago, we were able, with assistance of the city manager, as well as coordination with the IID, to install a valve over on Andrade Avenue. But over last week, we saw not only that the water didn't completely come into Daniel Gutierrez field, but it went into several retention basins, one on Margarita, as well as one on Sapphire, and then as well as in Enrique Camarena Junior High School. So I was telling Ms. Romo that we will be contacting the IID to schedule another appointment with them, and also probably invite the school district to see if we can work a situation or see what's going on, because every time they rise the water level in their canal, it comes back into our retention basins.
Perfect. Thank you, Ms. Salome.
You're
That's
welcome.
it.
That's all
Madam.
you have?
Thank you.
Mr. Ureña?
Yes. Muy buenas tardes, querido Cabildo. Just a reminder, in case time is being taken, my ADA accommodations do apply to the ordinance. I wanted to start with addressing the comments that I made here May 5th regarding the police department and police departments, a comparative analysis of police departments across the county. Before I even get there, I wanted to congratulate the California State Senate on the successful passage of Senate Bill 2. Again, a great initiative at a state level is passed with the blessing of our representative, Senator Ben Wessel, voting in favor in representation of our community. And meanwhile, local officials are bickering about things tangential to the essence of that bill, Senate Bill number 2. I hope as a council, we are able to contemplate at least and agendize an endorsement of the assembly version of that bill as it proceeds into the assembly. It's very important that even if we don't agree with the bill as written, that we take the initiative to have that conversation so that in our endorsement we can suggest to our representatives the slight modifications that we would like to see reflected in our representation, as opposed to just walking away from the conversation. On May 18th, Mayor Rosie Fernandez, on behalf of Moreno and Camilo Garcia, said that they flat out disagreed with my statement. My statement was comparative in nature. I sent out a 2,000-word letter CC'd in response to the city of El Centro, the city of Imperial, CC'd to the mayor of Calexico, instructed Administrator Figueroa to ensure that that letter got to the rest of the council people, where I made a statistical argument defending my claim. You saw Jason Jung come here, and this has been a very typical response from the community, where they say, well, Calexico Police Department has had a lot of instances, and maybe your comparison is wrong. We can look at timeframes, we can look at measurements, but that actually validates the point in my letter that police brutality, whether it's racial profiling or whether it's excess use of force, in any measure is underreported because of the non-independent nature of how the complaints are processed, unfortunately. And so I heard, Madam Mayor, when you were up here, you said, in response to my statement, you said, I disagree. Moreno disagrees, Camilo disagrees. I don't know if you have the same reasons for disagreeing, but let me just come back to what I had said. I said, comparative statement. Most of them, in fact, have been in El Centro and Imperial. So there's only really 4 options mathematically if you disagree. Either there is 0 police brutality in the valley, Calexico has more, El Centro and Imperial have more, or we have the same. Option A is not true. There have been cases of police brutality. Your chief mentioned some, and it's just been acknowledged by the mayor of Imperial that police brutality has existed in her department, which is an excellent advancement in the conversation. So if you disagree, are you saying that Calexico has more police brutality than El Centro? Or that we have equal rates? It's not enough to just disagree. I would like to know how you disagree and to clarify. And if you could do so in your city council comments, the better. Secondly, I wanted to talk about respect. Respect is something that is very important as we go about city business. I had a conversation with my friend Camilo Garcia on my intentions of working and bridging the gaps, ideological gaps that we may have, especially as national issues came knocking on our doorstep and we had big disagreements. I don't want to see a double border wall. I wanted to make sure we had a successful COVID committee, things of that nature, and you disagreed, and that's fine, that's passed. But respect is very important to make sure that our disagreements are worked out and that we have a functioning city. Right now, we're governing a broken city. And so on the topic of respect, I would like to say that I'm very disappointed, Madam Mayor, that in agenda review, you did not agendize Assembly Bill, the endorsement of Assembly Bill 26, the George Floyd and Policing Act. Chief Gerardo has come here on the dais to share with us his very valid opinion that George Floyd, a classic case of police brutality, that was police brutality. And he has just given us the use of force policy, the duty to intercede and report. I didn't get to ask him because you didn't let me, whether this actually is enough to fire someone or if it just puts someone on administrative leave or that nature. But whatever it does, if it's already codified here, well, then we should have no problem having the discussion of whether we want to criminalize it under California state law. And so it's very disrespectful that you don't even want to put that as an agenda item when it is a hot topic. And she would rather be texting right now, but that's okay. Also, May 18th, you voted on Assembly Bill 339, Open Meetings Law. In the context that we still don't have a working Zoom system with a 7-second lag, very not transparent, I communicated to you via Miguel Figueroa that I was gravely ill with a stomach infection. Councilwoman Romo on the dais told you many times that I was gravely ill. I can't say about the things that you did or undid in closed session. They will soon come out. But you did not have the respect to wait for me to get better to have those important discussions on the item that I proposed, an open meetings law. I quite frankly don't, I think we might have an ideological difference. I don't remember which way you guys voted, but I highly believe in open meetings from here to the end of time. Also on the topic of respect, Pride Month. Pride flags are going up in the whole state of California and the whole nation. June is the recognized Pride Month because of the events of the Stonewall Inn. Different cities have different dates when they celebrate Pride Month, but the Pride Month in June is the celebration of the Stonewall riot. That was a very important point in gay liberation. So again, I'm very offended that you can't make a proclamation for Pride Month. We still have an opportunity, June 16th, for us to make this very important proclamation and to give direction to Figueroa to put up a rainbow flag and break the homophobia that has kept this valley captive. And just today, the County of Imperial actually put pride colors on its
Gabby,
logo.
how many minutes is it?
No time is being taken, I'm sorry.
6 minutes.
Huh?
6 minutes? Okay, excellent. So I have a minute and 30 because of the ADA. It's 2.5, so a minute and 30 seconds more. Let me know when you start. No? I want a Juneteenth proclamation. We forgot to celebrate Black History Month. We only celebrated Black History Month because I directed yourself and Mr. Figueroa to do so via email, and I can release that email. It was in the last days of February. I was waiting to see if you would remember the Black people in your community. You did not. And just yesterday, we had the 100th anniversary of the Tulsa Massacre, which, I mean, was a very historic event for the Black community. So we're really failing the recognition of our marginalized communities. It's pretty easy. It costs $0, but there's a lack of willingness and a lack of respect towards those communities in not doing so. I'm just going to speed through the rest of this. I'm really hoping that we have a good and inclusive budget process that prioritizes the needs of the most affected by COVID. The ARPA discussions, as well as the budget special meeting that we're going to have tomorrow, and that it emphasizes, hopefully, housing and commercial accessibility so people can get back more resilient than ever to business. And lastly, on grant writers, I had agendized. I had asked Miguel Figueroa, I don't know if you're removing grant writing from the agendas. I don't know if that's your priority or not. But grant writing, we need to either find a consultant, RFP a consultant to without obligation, or work on a job description. The city is broken and it needs grants. Thank you so much, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Moreno?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I have two items real quick. Chief Ferraro, thank you for facilitating those speed humps at Spinoza, Robert Kennedy, and John F. Kennedy. I believe Public Works also. So thank you very much for facilitating that. I know it's been many years that the citizens wanted that done, so thank you very much. The other thing, as an alternate, Madam Mayor, for the Imperial County Transportation Committee, I did attend as an alternate, and one of the items that I'm proud to mention tonight is the Clean Mobility Options Voucher Pilot Program that the city of Calexico was a recipient of that program. It improves clean transportation access, and also it allows to increase zero emission in low-income communities like Calexico. We're the only one in Imperial County we're the recipient of that pilot program. It also creates funding for capacity building in support of small-scale clean mobility projects like electronic cars sharing, bike sharing, van pooling, and other clean mobility projects, as well as community transportation project needs. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
So you have. Okay. I did attend a Zoom meeting with the county officials, and it's update on COVID that we have meetings every week, and also the ICT budget workshop. Also, on the binational project that Mr. Figueroa and Mr. Escobar spoke about, I happened to attend that Zoom meeting as well, and it's related to trying to vaccinate, give immunizations or vaccines to the American maquiladora workers, and I think Mr. Figueroa was contacted the County Public Works and also CBP. Moving along, I had a meeting with the League of Cities, and like Mr. Garcia said, it was quite interesting to hear Mr. On LAFCO information. I know you sit on the board, so quite interesting what they do.
Yeah.
And Pro Tem Mayor and myself have been going out speaking to the merchants downtown. We've been giving them information on regarding the grants that are going to be available for them. And also we did ask them about the portable potty stations that they want to bring down to our city. And their answer was no, they wouldn't want them. Also, we met with CBB regarding PPEs and grants available, which we will be also going with her tomorrow to the merchants downtown to give them more information. And Mr. Ureña, relating to the month of June that you're talking about, it's celebrated in November, and we're going to keep it that way. That's all I have. Thank you. Moving on, Gabby.
Consent agenda?
So we go to just the consent agenda?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, do I have a motion for approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve it, Madam Mayor.
Madam Mayor, I have some discussion on item number 11. If we could pull that out of the consent agenda.
What item?
Item number 11.
We're not there yet.
I know, but are we making a motion for the whole consent agenda?
No, we're having a consent agenda.
11 is this, oh, okay, excellent. Sounds good. Got it. Okay, all good. I'll second that motion.
Councilmember Garcia?
Aye.
Councilmember Ureña?
Aye.
Councilmember Romo?
Aye.
Mayor Protem Moreno?
Aye.
Mayor Herrera Fernandez?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay. Discussion and potential action items. The first item is number 7, resolution of the City Council of the City of Calexico adopting a list of projects for fiscal year 2021-2022 funded by SB1, the Road Repair and Accountability Act of 2017.
Madam Mayor, as a result of SB 1 that was approved on April 28th, 2017. Cities like Calexico get the opportunity to receive additional monies for road maintenance, for rehabilitation projects, and as we do on an annual basis, there are monies that are placed on the road maintenance and rehabilitation account, for which is where the city receives its allocation. With that said, SB1 monies is what allows us to do a lot of the street improvement projects that we have here in the city. You actually approve every year the street improvement project for that fiscal year. Aside from that, this money is also used to address all the other road needs that we have. For example, if a new development were to come in and there's an opportunity to support that development by doing some road improvements, if money is available, that is a way that the city can step in and provide support. So with that said, as you have reviewed your agenda staff report, there is a fiscal impact of a little over $800,000 that we will be able to utilize. And again, these are projections from the California League of Cities, and in a way, this continues for us to use the SB1 revenues for the projects that I've identified. So with that said, at this point right now, the resolution that you can consider and adopt will allow us to continue the procedural steps to secure the money.
Any questions?
I have a question, Mr. Figueroa. Include support for public administration, public transportation in this list?
That is, if, let me understand your statement. Ms. Romo, you're recommending that that be included?
Yeah. Is possible?
We can make a note of it, and we can discuss within our Public Works Department, so we see if it's feasible to integrate that at this point, at this moment right now. We can come back and report back on this.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Any questions? Any more questions? No? Do we have a motion?
I have a motion to approve number A.
Second.
Excuse me, number 7.
Second.
Councilmember Garcia,
Aye.
Councilmember Romo,
Aye.
Councilmember Ureña,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Moreno,
Aye.
Mayor Arreola Fernandez.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay. We're moving on to item 8, approval of a resolution, City Council of the City of Calexico declaring its intent to accept reclamation of SR 111 between 2nd Street and State Route 98 from the California Department of Transportation.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, this item is one that has been worked on for quite some time now.
That's right.
I do want to bring to your attention that on July 15th, 2020, there was a resolution that approved the relinquishment of the portion of 2nd Street south, south into Mexico. This portion is obviously a substantial size, which incorporates everything north of 2nd Street all the way to State Highway 98. This entails us having the rights to the what is now a state highway, meaning that if there are different needs that need to be addressed from a policy perspective for that avenue, this governing body would have the autonomy to make the decision. We would not have to go through the state of California through, in this case, Caltrans District 11. One of the things that's important to be clear here is that with this resolution, you will provide as a governing body the authority for certificates, grants of deeds, and all pertinent documentation to be executed. One thing that I do want to point out is that currently right now the Department of Transportation will perform the improvements to Highway 111, Imperial Avenue, before it gets passed on to the city. This is not going to happen overnight. Why? Because if this resolution does get considered and approved by council, the next step is I need to speak with my assembly member, and my assembly member from the state of California will champion this in state of California policy. Meaning that once the city, if the city council approves this resolution, there is still a policy-making process that we need to go through with our assembly member. And as soon as the state of California officially declares and accepts the relinquishment, until then, this will come as part of the city's inventory of streets. So with that said, I'll be happy to answer any comments or questions.
Madam Mayor, I have a question.
Yes.
Mr. Figueroa, so how do we, I believe many years, I remember this was already brought up one time at City Council. It didn't go through because the state was the same position, relinquished, blah, blah, but there was no guarantees that those improvements were going to be done before they took possession, the city took possession. So what do we have? I know you mentioned that the state's going to do the improvements and then we take over, right?
Yes, we have the proper documentation from the Department of Transportation, Caltrans District 11, that entails the specifics of what it will mean to relinquish to the city of Calexico. With those specifics, this item is identified. We've also included that language in the staff report, so you can rest assured that by the time Imperial Avenue becomes the sole possession of the city, it's going to be the TIs, the improvements will be done.
I have, if I may, Madam Mayor, una pregunta para el señor Figueroa. I think I asked you this before, but if you could please refresh my memory. So first of all, this is excellent. I've been waiting for this. Apparently, we've been waiting for this for a long time. When you talk about improvements and input in another state process, obviously relinquishment is a vote. But when it comes to improvements, is that just paving? Can we, as a council, have input to tell the state, you know what, we want this road improved, you're going to spend money on it already, but can you give it another design, that's modern, and it will, so that way we don't have to use SB1 funds. Do we have input in that improvement process?
Pretty much, since it's state highway, imagine the improvement projects that we've seen in phases on Highway 98,
yes,
as an example. You're going to be seeing the same thing. You're going to be seeing some pavement improvements. You're going to be seeing some fixtures to the ADA ramps at the corners of streets, which again, we could save other pools of money and have those fixtures be done as part of this, which is the plan, which is what's included. So basically, those are the two items that we would be looking at in terms of an expectation from DOT before this gets relinquished.
So just to be very clear, the design of the improvement is not negotiable?
No, sir.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, just a quick question. I know you can't really tell a time or a timeline, right? But I kind of got the hint when you said, if you have seen the improvements on Highway 98, and we have seen them, and actually we haven't seen them. So, I'm always a person that I like to see timelines. I like to see finished and completed, projects. So, ballpark figure, what are we looking at? Because, I know that Imperial Avenue, right? It's really important. It's essential, for what happens every afternoon, for what happens, every holiday. So I think, with that, having to be part of the city where we have a little bit more say, maybe that can work for us looking into how can we improve, transit, how can we better, assist with the traffic issues maybe. But, again, timeline, ways to expedite, we also need to lobby. You mentioned, contacting our representative, Assemblyman Garcia or maybe someone else in addition to Assemblyman Garcia. So if you can do that, if you can, make sure that you convey, or we have to get involved, in helping you out to lobby to make sure that that happens, because it's really important moving forward and for what we're trying to do here to make sure that we continue to improve, our city. So hopefully you can put some expedite, experience into that.
Absolutely, and I'll be able to come back and present such a timeline once I get a better understanding of what the policy process will be in Sacramento. So that's what's going to dictate the timeline at the end of the day. So the sooner we can get this moving with someone that can sponsor, because that's what they need to do. They need to sponsor this piece of policy. We will go through the policy process, and based on that, depending on when we get submitted, I can come back and say, we're in the process, these are the steps we're going to take, the Assembly, and the Senate, and see what the governor says. So as soon as that happens, and it's all based on the adoption of this resolution, obviously.
Okay. So, no more questions from my part, and so I move to, for approval of item number 9? Oh, excuse me, item number 8.
I'll second.
Councilmember Garcia?
Aye.
Councilmember Romo?
Aye.
Councilmember Urrutia?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Moreno?
Aye.
Mayor Arreola Fernandez?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, moving on to item 9, approval of resolution authorizing the city manager to endorse a consent agreement with the United States of America acting through the Bureau of Reclamation, contract number 2007-34-L2034, and any other documents as may be necessary to fully execute the consent agreement.
Yes, Madam Mayor, and members of the council and the community. In a nutshell, what this is an agreement with the Bureau of Reclamation that will help us update the right of use for the 6 bridges that we have that cross over the All-American Canal. In short of saying, this is an inventory that needs to be ratified. What you folks would be doing today is acknowledging that this is the case, because it's no secret that we do have those bridges over the All-American Canal, given the geographic location of Calexico. Again, this would update, in the eyes of the Bureau of Reclamation, the right of use for these bridges as it pertains to their obligation as a result of the All-American Canal. It's extremely straightforward.
So, and I think I asked you that this was more kind of like a census of our bridges also. But, quick question also. I mean, has there been, or is there some sort of, inspection, that takes place, or who does that, of these structures? Is there something, I mean, who's responsible for that?
Great question. So I can give you an example today of how government jurisdictions go about this. Today, Supervisor Escobar, as part of his remarks, made a statement about the bridge over by the continuation of 2nd Street, which is on county land. It's already outside of the city boundaries.
Correct.
That is something that they work with the Bureau of Reclamation. Here, it's no different. As an example, we have the 2nd Street Bridge that crosses over the New River in the west side of Calexico. That is actually a project within our capital improvement program that we need to follow through on. There's an expansion of the bridge. At the end of the day, all those matters. Even though the right of use is on the city, those are items that we work parallel in conjunction with the Bureau of Reclamation.
Okay.
So as it pertains to, I just wanted to put things into perspective, but as it pertains to like specific issues with structure, those are things that we consult in tandem with them.
Okay. Thank you.
Do you have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Councilmember Garcia?
Aye.
Councilmember Romo?
Aye.
Councilmember Urrutia?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Moreno?
Aye.
Mayor Arreola Fernandez?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Moving on to item 10, authorize city manager to sign amendment number 1 to the agreement of professional services with Panorama Environmental Industries for technical and regulatory assistance for the New River Improvement Project, Calexico Reach.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, members of the community, what this item pertains to is, and first off, I want to start off by saying that the fiscal impact is and will be absorbed by the $28 million from the Department of Water Resources that we received from the state of California and Prop 68 to begin with. Second, when this city council approved the mitigated negative declaration, the MND, the CEQA requirement for the infrastructure projects south of the 2nd Street Bridge for the new river that I've talked at length, as part of those requirements, there was a jurisdictional delineation of U.S. waters, which is a study that has to get done. When this study was done to comply with the CEQA process, this was a broad study. Let's fast forward. Panorama was brought on board as a consultant to the project manager that the city also approved to provide professional services to secure the regulatory permits from the state and the feds for the construction of the projects. Once we began to dive in and look at the specifics of the rec permits, it was determined by one of the agencies, the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, along with the other two agencies, the Regional Water Quality Control Board, and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, that we had to perform a more specific study that outlined that there were no wetlands in the vicinity of the project that we're doing. So, with that said, what this study will entail is pretty much that. We know that there are no wetlands, but we need to follow the due process so we can share with the state and the feds evidence. With that said, that's what we're going to do with this if it gets approved. And I do want to point out that this would not delay some of the timelines that I've been sharing with you in terms of when construction will begin.
If I may? So Miguel, so if we know that there is no wetlands project, right? So why do we have to go through this? Why do we have to spend this additional $18,000, right? And I know, why do we have to make this additional expense when can the project manager company convey this? Or do we have to go through this bureaucratic process where we spend, even though it's allocated within the money, right? I get it, but at the end of the day, that's money that, still belongs to the taxpayers. So, and you know me, that's something that I always don't sit well with me when we have to do extra expenses. So, again, and just something for my own information, maybe that the people out there.
Sure.
Because, again, if they know that there is no such thing, as wetlands, sure, why do we have to go through that extra step?
So the project manager and myself have over 40 years of combined experience on this project. We exhausted all alternatives as it pertains to the requirements that the state and federal government ask for this regulatory permit in particular. And the response that we received was, you guys need to perform this. It was as I'm sharing with you, given our experience again and knowing some of these things, specifically on the requirements for the project and what it entails, we exhausted all options. And if needed, I can get the project manager to do a write-up and explain the leaps and balances that he went through until we were put in a position in which we had to bring this item for your consideration.
And again, it's not that, I want to delay. I just want to know, because if the statement is there that they know, but yet they want assurance that it's not there. So it just, to me, it's an extra step that is costing money, right? But, just again, for my information, for my peace of mind and everybody's, who might share my take, but, thank you for the explanation.
No, absolutely. Thank you.
Just to piggyback up on your comments, Mr. Garcia, what would happen if we don't do it? For whatever reason, I'm just asking, right? What would happen?
We cannot secure a regulatory permit
Okay.
that we need to construct the project.
So it's mandatory. And now this was done, 20 years ago or just recently?
When we did the mitigated negative declaration and we did this first assessment, that was done in 2020.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
So let me go ahead and move to approve, but if you can just get that right, at least just for my personal information.
Absolutely.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Just an educational opportunity for me.
Sure.
Thank you. So I move for approval.
Do I have a second?
Councilmember Garcia?
Aye.
Councilmember Romo?
Aye.
Councilmember Ureña?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Bonino?
Aye.
Mayor Rola Fernandez?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, moving on to item 11, introduction and first reading of an ordinance temporary suspending Calexico Municipal Code, Chapter 2.06 regarding city council salaries and temporary suspending city council benefits to mitigate the fiscal impact of COVID-19 on the city.
Motion to approve with amendment. I would like to make a motion to approve this item with one slight amendment. The amendment is, I'm happy to accept all of this, with the exception of 3 reductions. The stipend itself, the cell phone allowance, and the workers' compensation. Other than that, I make a motion to approve the rest of this resolution.
No,
Is there a second?
Second.
There is a second.
Councilmember Garcia?
No.
I have some discussion on this item, actually, before we begin on voting. So I wanted to give some hard numbers.
okay, Mr. Ureña?
Yeah, I made
Okay, we already heard what you said. Now
Yes.
we're moving forward.
No, Madam Mayor, point of order. I'm asking the floor, I'm asking yourself, we've been through this before, we've fought about this. This is about the respect that we're talking about. When a motion,
You don't have respect.
when a motion is made and a motion is seconded, there is space for discussion before a vote. And I would like to say something. And the municipal code, if I remember correctly, the municipal code specifically says that the maker of the motion gets the last word in general. So I made a motion, and I would like to take my space to briefly discuss my motion. So without further ado, I will go ahead and do so unless you have a ruling. Very briefly, our operating budget for the city is $22 million. That's the general fund of our operating budget. Our operating budget itself is about $40 million. The motion that I made would save $113,000. That is $113,000 out of the total $157,000 that you guys are proposing to cut. If the motion is passed as it is written, it would represent a savings of 0.8% of the entire operating budget. My amendment is willing to accept most of that. It's willing to, it brings it down to 0.2% of the operating budget. Apologies, let me clarify those numbers. As proposed, yeah. The difference between the two proposals would be 0.6%. I'm willing to accept 0.6 of the percentage points, 0.6 of the 1 percentage point that originally it would represent. I'm willing to accept 0.6 out of the original 0.8 that it would represent. And these are minuscule numbers. I mean, I could almost get them with a little pincita, right? So I'm willing to accept all of this because I know that $113,000 is about a trimester of Measure H, and that could build a park. But I'm concerned about those 3 things. The cell phone allowance, I'm concerned for Public Records Act request. If we don't have a separate cell phone that separates the text messages that we get for city information, that separates the calls, that separates the emails that we get from personal to city business, I'm going to be making public records requests and having you bring your personal phone to make sure that we extract phone by phone which city business and what's not. And you would be putting yourself in that situation if you vote if you vote to get rid of the cell phone allowance. It would also not make it harder for me to reach my constituents and the city manager, and just overall, it could even lead to some legal trouble, and that's way more expensive than $2,000. I'm not done. The rest of the state of California, since you guys talk about the California League of Cities, I just talked to them this morning. They're gonna reach back to me, but the rest of the state, especially in disadvantaged communities like our own, is moving to give more benefits to its city council people. Why are they doing that? Because they expect that the members, the representatives of a disadvantaged community are also disadvantaged themselves. For years, that has not been true here. All of us live in the new developments. None of us live in the west side of El Centro, right? Or the west side of Calexico. We're privileged. So taking away that stipend is really saying you have to be rich to get here. You have to, in a community that has no public transportation, you have to have a car. You have to be able to pay gasoline and all that stuff. The proposal I'm making amounts to $40K, from $150 to $40K, $110,000 savings. I'm willing to accept the majority of what you're saying because I agree with it, but it's draconian. I mean, it can get us into some legal trouble. It makes it inequitable, and it makes fair political representation a lot harder. It's elitist, it's classist, much like your other votes. And taking away workers' compensation, what if I get hurt on the job? And I'm not talking about a physical accident, but a mental health accident that can come when things like this, for example, are put out here. I'm the only person on this council that is not a property owner. I'm the only person on this council that cannot afford rent in my own city. I'm the only person on this council, like many of the young people that you guys dismiss, that is saddled with student loan debt at 2020 levels, and that graduated into the worst economic recession in the history of this country. Putting this on the floor is incredibly political on its own. I'm willing to accept most of it. I'm willing to accept most of it. Leave the bare bones. But if you're not even willing to leave the bare bones, we all know this is a completely political, classist, and racist action that you are about to take. You are saying that the representatives of this community cannot be poor and are not valued enough to be compensated with a stipend. With that, proceed with the vote.
Councilmember Garcia?
No.
Councilmember Romo?
Aye.
Councilmember Ureña?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Moreno?
No.
Mayor Rela Fernandez?
No.
Motion does not pass.
Now moving back to the original.
Yes, Madam Mayor, if I can just give an overview of the staff report, and just given the request came from the council, I can give you the opportunity to further share your thoughts on this. So what we did was to make sure that we broke down and provided detail as it pertains to the annual compensation that a city council member in Calexico receives. What we did was bring up the compensation and other add-on benefits that are provided, like the cell phone use. For example, sometimes depending on your line of work, depending on what you do, depending on how your spouse is covered medically, it may not be in the best interest of a public official to accept some of these compensation benefits. And if I'm not mistaken, I think that is the case since July 2020 of Councilman Garcia. If I'm not mistaken, I believe he has not been receiving health care benefits. And I can stand corrected, Councilman Garcia, please. But again, this goes back to, depending on the situation that an elected official is in, they decide to accept the benefits or not accept the benefits. In this case, what we did through legal was identify the request and put it in the best possible way on this staff report. So with that said, I'm sure you folks have additional comments, but as it pertains to staff, this is how we prepped and put together this staff.
Thank you.
So,
The city attorney.
huh?
Mr. Moreno?
No, I'll just make a motion to approve.
If I can,
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we seconded already.
You're correct, Mr. Figueroa. Since July 2020, I have not received medical benefits. And we all know that medical benefits for family coverage, it's in the upwards of $2,000 a month, a little bit more than that. So you do your math, that's quite a bit of savings. And then also at that time, and just for the record also, this is not something that, is being put on the table right now. This is something that I asked even before at that time, when I went in. Not because I have insurance through my spouse or I have insurance through my job, but honestly because I'm here to serve. I'm not an elitist. I'm not someone that is well off, right? I do have a student loans also, Mr. Ureña. I graduated also in the worst time of, the year or the decade of what we're going through. So I'm with you, right? But we also, throughout this meeting, and not just throughout this meeting, we have heard of the needs of our city, our department, or different departments. So this is not about politically motivated. This is not about, any other type of, reason. But the only reason is to help. In fact, I want to amend this item to not just read that this is due to mitigate the fiscal impact of COVID-19 on the city. This is to mitigate that ongoing fiscal crisis that we have been going through for years. And yes, we're better than previous, times. But we are not nowhere close to where we need to be. So for that, I did ask, City Manager Figueroa, back then, around July, and I said, Miguel, I want to look into how can I give back this or have access to this funding that I'm not utilizing. Not for me, but I want to give it back to every department. And I even said, I want to have access as to how that money is distributed. If I want to put it back in a department, great. If I want to create a scholarship for underprivileged, student or youth, I want to have access to that. And then he said, you know what? Let me look into that. He came back to me with a legal decision. He goes, you know what? That's not doable. The only way that it's going to be doable is through a action that it has to be taken at the council level. And that's where we find ourselves now. So, I want to amend, my suggestion is to amend for this item to read that this is to mitigate the ongoing financial crisis that we have had. Not because of COVID. COVID came in and actually made it worse. So this is an ongoing crisis, and we have to chip in. Then also, I want to make sure that, whatever savings we have, whether it's 150 plus, or whether we decide to go for the length of the term that I will be here, I'm willing to put that on the table and see who's a taker on that also, that we put it back into helping our departments. Look, it's shameful that we have presentations and we have to wait 10 minutes, 15 minutes for a laptop to come on, for a projector to warm up. It is shameful, and you, Councilman Ureña, you said, you know what? if you don't do this, I'm going to ask for public records requests. Our city clerk it's working with antiquated tools to provide those requests, those answers that we're seeking, and not just you, but the entire citizens. That's what we have been talking about, and we talk about every time it has become cliche that we want to be transparent. So how can we be more transparent, or how can we be transparent to everybody when we don't have the resources? And I hear that throughout, hearing from our chief of police that he bought computers, 2 years ago, or probably more than that. And that's the case of every department. So I want to make sure that this goes back and has an immediate impact on the specific departments. Buying computers, buying a projector, buying software that facilitates and make transparent our processes, having readily access to our municipal code. We're antiquated. We are behind in times. I know that this was not going to solve all of that, but it's going to be a little bit. And I hope that, whoever is here from the citizens and from the employees, that they see that this is for them. This is not about punishing anyone here. This is not about a political motivation. At least that's not me. And nobody. So yes, I agree. Maybe we need to keep the phone stipend. Maybe that's the only thing, because, we need to communicate with our citizens. Emails. And that's probably the only, compromise that I'm willing to accept. But everything else should be actually given up. I'm ready. And I'm willing, not because I'm privileged, Mr. Ureña, or anybody out there. Because when you come here, it should be about serving and helping. There shouldn't be any motivation besides that. So with that, that's my comment. And if there's no other comment, I'll move for approval.
I have some discussion.
I want to
Oh,
make
go
a
ahead.
comment. Mr. Urea, you accused me in El Centro when you gave your little report at 2 o'clock this afternoon that it was my idea.
You
I'm gonna
proposed
tell you
it.
something.
It's right there. You proposed it. Mayor Pro Tem and Mayor
I proposed
Rose.
it because I had my pro temp mayor that also asked for it.
So it's yours.
And yeah, I proposed it.
Yeah, it's yours.
So you know what? I want everything. I'm sorry about it, even the phone. Moving forward, Mrs. Romo, you say you love Calexico. You want this for Calexico and that. Just show it, because you know what I'm telling you. By doing this, it shows our citizens that we care about them, because it's going to go back to them. I would like to see it for Public Works, because Public Works needs to have some equipment for them. And like you said, Camilo, Gabby is bombarded with requests from both of you all the time. And she can't even do her job. She always has to she needs assistance. And this is going to help her. So moving on, you want to make a comment, Mrs. Romo?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, what do you think, Camilo, Mr. Camilo, the 157,000 will be used for? ¿Qué piensas?
Like I said, Ms. Romo, I want to have this money have an immediate impact on our city to benefit our community. Whether it's helping Gabby, to improve, the software, the equipment that she has, and as I mentioned, the laptop, something as simple as that. But then also, Public Works. We heard so many times that, our people from parks are fixing, they're beyond repair, their equipment that they're having. I see them.
I am confused. Is savings or what is?
Well, let me just speak to that. I don't want to see this as savings because to me it's detrimental that we will put this as savings when we have the needs. When we have the need, why are we going to put it as savings?
No, we're not.
When the need is there. When the need is there to buy a lawnmower. When the need is there to upgrade, our computer equipment to be able to display in our presentations, to provide access to our citizens.
Miguel, our budget is not bad, but we are also to receive 7.5 million support for COVID. And then, what is the problem? It's only 157,000.
Actually,
What
it's
is the problem in the budget?
I think it's been discussed, and it's been said possibly in different ways. We know the issues that we have in our budget. We know the need that we have per our fiscal regulatory agencies that oversee our work, the required savings that we need to have in our general fund. We also understand, and you're going to get a better picture of this tomorrow, once you see the conservative budget that myself and the finance director are recommending. At the end of the day, it's the policy that you folks dictate. I can tell you how important it is to have a savings account with money that is going to be looked with very good eyes by both an exterior third-party auditor in the state of California. But at the end of the day, the only 5 people that make a determination as to how that gets expended is the city council.
This is only for 1 year, no?
as proposed, yes.
It's for 1 year.
So,
We're gonna do it for 1
Fiscal
year.
year.
And after 1 year, we'll vote on it again.
I had some additional discussion. So, Ms. Romo, I'm sorry to just correct you very slightly. No era los 157,000. La propuesta que yo hice, the proposal I made, gave them 110,000.
Sí, I know.
And so what we're fighting about right here is $40,000. I'm gonna ask a question right now, but before we get there, and I don't want to get hung up on the personal politics or the personal places that we come with, but please specify, just for the record, what year you graduated from college, and if you would like, the dollar amount of student loans that you have. That would help us because
That's irrelevant, Mr. Ureña. And that's not something that I would respond.
Está bien. Don't answer. Está bien. I'm going to go straight to the comment on this item. So we're fighting about $40,000. When the cannabis budget came in, I was begging Mr. Moreno through an amendment, through a formal motion. I said, Mr. Moreno, please don't just focus on the police. Dale $4,000 para lawnmower, para public works. And you guys voted it down when the money was in your hand. So ahora díganme, por los 40,000 que nos estamos peleando, no 150,000.
Tú no estás peleando.
No, discúlpeme, porque tú estás en contra, estamos discutiendo, tenemos un desacuerdo. No son 157,000, estamos...
Habla en inglés, por favor.
No, 40,000. 40,000. ¿En qué lo van a gastar?
Ya, Mr.
¿En qué van a gastar los $40,000? ¿Qué les compra? ¿Qué te compra, Lili? ¿Qué te compra? 40,000. Una computadorilla, pero 40,000. 40,000. Hay que balancear las cosas. 40,000. Yeah, $40,000. I'm going to finish this last sentence. You can start voting. You can start voting over my comments.
There's a motion on the floor.
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
There's a motion. And you have an amendment to the motion, right?
Yes, I do have an amendment to change. The first is to change from, to mitigate the fiscal impact of COVID, to mitigate ongoing, fiscal needs or fiscal crisis. I hate crisis, but the word crisis, but dislike, excuse me. But to mitigate fiscal needs, that have been ongoing. So that's that. And then also, I want to put back that, actually the cell phone stipend. If that's something that, that's my amendment.
Okay, just for the sake of being clear, and on your last statement, with your final words, Councilman Garcia, by that you mean that you are asking for for your motion to be as presented on the staff report?
Yes, with.
Well, we understand the change on the language. Yes, that's
the change of the language, and then also, this included the phone stipend.
Not included.
Not. We're gonna take it out. That should be provided just for sake of clarity and for sake of transparency, and avoiding any other type of legal issues that we have been previously advised by legal.
Yes.
Right, when it comes to public records requests and all of that. So my amendment is changing the language,
yes,
and putting back the cell phone stipend. And for a year.
And for the record, that's obviously going to impact, that's going to have a change on the fiscal impact.
Correct. So whatever it is, that stipend for the phone.
Gotcha.
So,
Okay,
Just the
understood.
phone.
yes, just the phone.
Understood.
And of course, make sure that it doesn't go to general fund, a savings. That this gets spent on immediate needs, for whatever departments that they have.
And just for the sake of direction, this is where I would just humbly ask for clarification, just so on the record there is a clear understanding of what the monies are to be used for. And I'm going to use broad terms, right? You've mentioned equipment, and you've mentioned city departments. So with that said, are you saying equipment for city departments across the board?
Correct.
Those things are important to have a good understanding.
Correct. But starting with again, here with our
City Hall.
City clerk, City Hall. Of course, Public Works, parks, buying them equipment, what they have asked, lawnmowers. And then if you
yes,
have a list of immediate needs, because we need to make sure, and correct me if I'm wrong, these are unrestricted funds, because everything else that we have, Councilwoman Romo mentioned, the ARPA monies.
Yes.
All of those have a lot of restrictions. And yes, I would love to use those for all these needs, and probably wouldn't be having this discussion. But for what we can do to, acquire some of that equipment or purchases,
Understood.
that might be
And
restricted.
just for also for the point of the communication, that is important for us for budgetary purposes. Because
And please provide us an update as to.
that's my point.
Correct.
And that's why I just wanted the
Yes.
clarification, which,
Yes.
thank you for that.
Mr. Moreno?
Roll call, vote. Yeah, I second it.
You need to accept his amendment, I believe, right? He needs to-
Yes.
What is the motion?
What?
Moreno, you would have to accept his amendment.
I did, I just
Okay,
said.
good. Okay, then we have a motion on the floor.
Councilmember Garcia?
Aye.
Councilmember Romo?
No.
Councilmember Ureña?
I will vote no with my right to comment. $40,000 is not worth the value of a representative democracy. And that's a municipal code, Mr. Rice, and you haven't read it.
Mayor Pro Tem Moreno?
Yes.
Mayor Herrera Fernandez?
Yes.
Motion passes 3-2.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, at this point, would you folks entertain a motion to continue the meeting? It's past 9:30.
I will make a motion to, 12:13. Motion to continue the
What is
meeting.
it? Do we have to,
If
have
you
to be
if you
informed.
wish to continue the meeting, you need to take action on that.
Motion to continue.
you guys wish to continue?
If I may provide the
How much summertime you need?
well, I mean,
These are pretty fast.
the next items, I mean, it depends on how much discussion there is. However,
Well,
I do
yeah.
want to point out that these are time-sensitive items.
I'm ready to approve 12 and whatever 13 is. Or
So
make the
it's your
appointment.
call.
Yeah. Is there a second to continue?
You said 15 minutes?
No.
you said?
Hold on, what is it?
No, to answer your question.
Yeah, I asked how much time you need.
As it pertains to me presenting the items, it doesn't take much on my end.
Go ahead.
Okay,
Yeah,
You
go
know,
ahead.
I'll move to.
There's
Oh,
a motion.
Okay,
Is
so
there a
second.
Second.
Councilmember Garcia?
Aye.
Councilmember Romo?
Aye.
Councilmember Ureña?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Moreno?
Aye.
Mayor Arturo Fernandez?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, moving on to item 12, award the bid proposal from the road engineering industry in the amount of 368, what is it, million or plus 15%? Contingency to 249,505.25. Authorize the city manager to sign construction agreement in Calexico New River Parkway Project Phase 1B, Federal Project Number HPLUL-5168015.
So move.
Second.
Councilmember Garcia?
Aye.
Councilmember Romo?
Aye.
Councilmember Ureña?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Moreno?
Aye.
Mayor Arturo Fernandez?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, moving on to appointment of the city representative to the Imperial County Airport Land Use Commission.
I make a motion to appoint Councilmember Garcia.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Councilmember Garcia?
Aye.
Councilmember Romo?
Aye.
Councilmember Ureña?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Moreno?
Aye.
Mayor Arturo Fernandez?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Congratulations.
Mayor, at this point, we've already addressed item 14 at the beginning of the meeting. The follow items to that are informational items that were requested by Councilman Garcia, and we presented them in the form of an informational item for which we have our Public Works Manager ready to present if you folks decide. If you wish, Councilman Garcia, to give it the appropriate time, I think it merits. It's your call. We can discuss them right now, or we can have them as items to be discussed at the next city council meeting.
If you can push this to the beginning of the agenda, even though they're just discussion?
For the next meeting?
For the next meeting.
Yes, sir, yes.
I will have plenty of time to discuss this.
Sure.
So, for essence of time and,
Okay, so,
consideration for.
So we don't motion on that?
so now this is for the future agenda items, Mr. Garcia, okay?
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
There.
Yes, I'll make a motion to,
Second.
Councilmember Garcia?
Aye.
Councilmember Romo?
Aye.
Councilmember Ureña?
Just clarification. We're tabling 15, 16, and 17, right?
Informational items, yes.
Okay, sounds good. Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Moreno?
aye.
Mayor Arturo Fernandez?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, now so moving on to the future agenda items. Mr. Garcia?
No.
Right now, we have a good chunk of items that.
Yeah.
that we need to bring back.
Two left.
Okay.
Two parks.
I do have one quick one. Out of the conversation, surge and a potential item. You can confer with county if, they'll be at the table, but a discussion on roadways and as they impact not just roadways, but roadways, housing, the climate impact discussion.
In other words, the follow-up to the presentation that was given in which I believe you requested Supervisor Escobar to have a meeting on.
Yes, and if he can do it with the entire board of supervisors, or if we can go to them, even better, just confer with them.
I'll follow up.
Okay, that's it.
Yes, ma'am.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.